to this session of Digital Futures. The session is titled Emerging Female Voices in AI, and I am Shermeen Yousif. I'll be moderating and presenting in this session with a group of amazing panelists and presenters, AI researchers, who happen to be amazing female entrepreneurs, researchers, educators in the area of architecture. I will, one second, please. I will just try to have one simple adjustment to the setting. Okay, and now, okay. To make sure that you all can see my screen perfectly. Now you can see it? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, and you can see now too perfectly? Okay.
Yes.
I will start by presenting my research, and then I'll give an introduction to our group of panelists, and then we will have presentations from each of the panelists, and then we'll have a very interesting discussion on pressing issues on AI and architecture. In my introduction, I want to first introduce myself, and while I'm moderating this session, I want to say that this research on AI and architecture has been my passion and my interest for the past few years. To introduce myself, I'm Dr. Shermeen Yousif. I am the director of the Environmental Design and Natural Materials Lab at the School of Architecture, FAU. I'm also a director of my own research practice, Deep Eco Design Studio. And in this session, this is also introduction into my research lab. And then in this session, I have certain aspects and questions that I want to cover as part of our discussion and our panel. For example, when it comes to artificial intelligence and creativity, my research has been focused on how to augment and enhance creativity in the design process. And when it comes to performance-driven design and AI, how can AI automate certain design aspects? And then I have been experimenting with different workflows of AI-driven design in my research and teaching. And I'm interested also in evaluating these AI-driven systems. So regarding the first question, this has been a long research project in collaboration with two professors at our school, Professor Bolajan Bermiso. And we've been offering certain workshops, international workshops, and testing and applying our method into workflows that happen to have multiple AI models connected. So we were looking at multiplicity and multimodality of AI models in a design framework where there is multiple AI models connected according to strategic connections, where one AI model's output can feed into another AI's model's input. Yeah, so this is the Acadia 2021 workshop that we offered in September 2021, and it was this is one of the group's participants' output, where we shared with them pre-trained GAN models, and they were working within an inference and testing phase, and connecting aspects of natural systems and urban morphologies and how they can have their agency and input in one, like on the left side, and then everything updates in terms of the other AI models on the right side. So there's this maintaining of agency through the input that is curated data set. Now, in terms of prediction and how AI models can be used to automate certain design tasks, we are interested in aspects, for example, of performance-driven design and how AI can help us move from simulation to prediction methods. In this case, we looked at surrogate modeling, and surrogate modeling is, in a simple like a brief summary, is a model where you have an approximation of the actual simulation model while training an AI model to approximate that simulation model and given enough accuracy while it's an instantaneous and in some cases real-time prediction. So we tested like a workflow where there is a floor plan designs and daylight simulation meshes, and we trained our own model. And then our objective was that the designer's side, they can engage with a generative framework where AI is giving them prediction and feedback on their designs. We curated data sets, we tested our method, and we had high accuracy of prediction versus simulation. In teaching, I was really interested in testing those workflows with multiple connected AI models, and this is one example of my students' work. This is spring 2022, and this amazing group of students were actually looking at multiple AI models connected and investigating aspects of natural systems, including mycelium growth, and looking at a speculative future project where mycelium can be a building material, and also their scope of investigation when it comes to training AI models with certain organization of systems with breeding with mycelium and leading to this amazing speculative project. They also looked at processing of AI images towards 3D aspects. And in one recent studio that I established at our school in the spring, the students were engaging in AI-driven design workflow where there was aspects of environmental simulation and daylight, and how AI can be integrated at certain design phases, including early precedent analysis and research, speculation and conceptualization, and in the end, also using AI for representation and renderings. So these are examples of students' work where there is, in the end, the AI rendering as a representation method. My recent work, which I'm interested in right now, is how to continue training diffusion models, including concepts that are relevant to my research, which is environmental aspects and how to look at vernacular strategies, for example, Florida vernacular strategies, and how to control the input to these diffusion models, looking at only text prompts versus text prompts with input images, how to train the models that it can learn from passive strategies from vernacular architecture, and then how to move towards a model that can understand those concepts and to modernize those vernacular strategies, maintaining certain logic of what makes the building or the architecture more sustainable and green. So these are some outputs of this trained diffusion model. My interest was not necessarily just to engage with the models at the representation level, but also to look at how these diffusion models can be climate specific and context specific, and how can we continue training them with certain logic. And recently, I just had a contribution to the exhibition called Constructing Futures AI at the Detroit Month of Design. These are speculative outputs, AI-generated outputs on the future of construction. So I guess now I can move with our panel discussion and introducing also our first speaker. But what I'm interested in right now, I can also stop sharing my screen. What I'm interested in to start our session presentation is that I introduce the panel in the sense that the panel today is about bringing together these amazing female leading voices in AI research to explore the current and the future issues at the intersection of AI and architectural design. How can we probe this transformative impact of AI on the discipline. Central to this discussion, of course, is the influence of AI on learning and education, where the challenge lies in preserving human imagination, creativity, and critical thinking within AI-driven frameworks. We confront a paradigm shift, and the panel would examine this evolving role of human agency in a world where machines gain increasing autonomy. So what strategies must designers employ to retain their value in the face of AI's growing agency? And then we continue, and the dialogue continues to address the shifting value propositions within design, urging a reconsideration of how AI will reshape our practice models, teams, and also in educational settings. As disruptive innovation continues to reshape the architectural discipline, particularly in alignment with the frameworks and design codes. The panel also will explore how architects can navigate the restructuring of both firms and industries. And then it tackles the biases inherent in AI models. We want to question how designers can also harness these AI tools and methods to reflect on their own creative sensibilities. And then the session will also look into the potential of AI and digital twin technologies in sustainable urban planning, highlighting the capacity to enhance data-driven design decisions. And then this multifaceted discussion hopefully will shed light on the evolving trajectory of AI and design. And we'll be spanning the spectrum from creative exploration to pragmatic aspects, and then from education to practice and beyond. And with this, I'm ready to introduce our first speaker. Our first speaker is the amazing faculty, Professor Karla Saldana. Karla is a tenure-track assistant professor in the School of Architecture at the University of Florida and a faculty affiliate at the AI2 Center, the Center of Latin American Studies, and Fiber. Karla is the director of Share Lab, a research group focused on developing projects that leverage the interaction between AI and human intelligence applied to boost creativity in architecture design and create tools to analyze big data of urban phenomena. She collaborates on international projects in Germany, Italy, Switzerland, Mexico, and Ecuador. And Karla is an Ecuadorian architect and coder with a Master of Advanced Studies in Landscape Architecture and PhD in Technology and Architecture from the ETH Zurich. Her PhD researched the integration of artificial and human intelligence for an accurate and agile response to natural disasters, leveraging a multimodal fusion approach of machine learning inference. So with this, welcome, Karla. Thank you for accepting the invitation, and you can take over and share your screen.
Well, thank you for the kind introduction, Shermeen. I was smiling through your presentation. I think we have a lot of overlappings, and I want to echo your effort into trying to amend and complement the way that we can use AI for design practices. So I hope my 10 minutes presentation can give everybody a hint of what I'm doing, and then we can all discuss about how can we continue thinking and working on AI. So let me go ahead and share my screen. You will let me know if you're seeing the screen. Is it working?
Perfect.
All right, perfect. So I'm going to start my 10-minute presentation. So thank you for the introduction today. I'm going to talk about the interplay between human and artificial intelligence and how can we see AI to be used as a tool or as an instrument. And to talk about that, I thought it's important to mention what is artificial intelligence and who was the first person that spoke about it. So this can be traced back to Alan Turing, who introduced the concept of artificial intelligence 70 years ago. Turing proposed that machines can exhibit intelligent behavior by tricking people into thinking they're humans. Therefore, in this context, AI refers to techniques that enable machines to mimic human activities. Industry and academia have been competing to pass those Turing tests with their AI systems for many years, and this competition has led to a diverse toolkit of AI technologies that we researchers, designers can choose from to achieve any of the goals that we have in our design practice. So to get a little bit more into detail about AI, I wanted to explain that AI has two branches of research. The first one that goes towards reducing human intelligence to a symbolic manipulation, and the second one that goes towards a simulation of neurological behavior. So the first one on the left concerns on rule-based systems or models, such as decision trees, and is based on logic. The second one on the right investigates the creation of artificial neural networks. And around 1960, the symbolic method succeeded and the neural network approach was abandoned. But this situation changed around 1980 when the symbolic and logistic-based approaches reached a bottleneck. And at the same time, we had a lot of computational power grew and allowed these models to control more significant number of parameters. So we took again the neural network. So what I'm describing is this whole past timeline of what it's called the winters of AI. So we've seen already 2 winters of AI, and we are seeing now again a take on power, or what we're seeing today is that we are trying to use this computational power in relation to big data to start influencing other fields of research. Because before, yes, AI was explored, but was not purposefully applied in different fields of studies. So what we see is that when we're looking at the towards neurosimulation, which is the one that is mostly applied today, they have also 2 main focuses. The one that seeks to explain or understand what intelligence is, and the other one that creates mathematical abstractions to detect data patterns and performs automatic learning. So the second one, the one that is doing mathematical abstraction, is the one that is currently widely used, and this is based on probabilities. So if you look at the 1995 book on artificial intelligence, A Modern Approach by Stuart Russell and Peter Narvik, you see that they have divided AI into 5 research areas, and these are all based on the Turing tests. So there were machine learning, expert systems, computer vision, natural language processing, and robotics. You see that machine learning was considered a branch within artificial intelligence, but what we're seeing today is that machine learning has overtaken all of the different areas of research in artificial intelligence. And what we're also seeing as before, the area of research we're focusing on a specific type of data, but today we're seeing that all of these branches are being merged, or what we call here is having a multimodal approach by fusing different data modalities. And these artificial intelligence algorithms can be considered a problem-solving tool, but I think we should also think about them to be able to solve some problems, because I think what AI gives us today, and we have to be very aware of, is that they are able to answer any question, which allow us, or which put us in responsibility to focus on what is the question that we want to ask, which should be aligned with our goals. Understanding that every decision made using AI should be attached to a responsibility to the human that formulates the question. So if we look at the advancements of artificial intelligence today, everything is about diffusion models based on image generation, right? So we also have transformers for LLMs, but today I'm going to focus on these diffusion models. What you see here on the screen, they're all automatic generated images, and that puts I would like to ask is how can we cooperate with this in order to create creative work? And I think right now what we're also seeing is that because there is this availability to produce these images, images and text are becoming cheaper and cheaper. So there is an abundance of newly generated content. But so what happens if we are seeing how these algorithms train? So these algorithms try to encompass all the data points that are generated under the bell of this normally distributed curve. So all of these examples are not out of our imagination, but they rather fall into the boundaries of what we can think, what has been already produced, but is an interpolation. So what we can claim is that these algorithms learn from past data. And all of this lies on the center of this curve. So the question that I want to ask is what happened at the edges of this curve? And I will argue that at the edges of this curve are these examples of extraordinary designs or extraordinary examples of creativity that defy categorization and are instance of creativity. And this is something that I want to talk about today, is that in order for us to produce creative work and to be able to approach the edges of the curve, we have to work in collaboration with human and artificial intelligence, because we need to be able to use AI as a navigating tool that will allow us to see what is out there, but we're the ones that are making the decision whether to go there or not. So I think the whole approach that I want to talk about today is that the AI can complement architects and designers to make informed decisions, generate new ideas, and explore design space. But we should do it in collaboration, thinking of it not as a in a sense of master slave, like for example, we will control it, but more in the sense that it will become an active agent that is part of the design process, and we are not thinking that this is just something that we can control. So one thing that I will also like to emphasize is that artificial intelligence can be used in different ways. And in order to join machine and human intelligence, I think it's a helpful analogy to think about how to use AI as a practical tool, like a hammer or a lever. And that is very helpful to solve specific problems or tasks, such as optimizing a constraint or playing chess. But it's also essential to consider it as an instrument that is comparable to a pen or a paper or a violin. Just like these instruments, they require a skilled human to produce a masterful creation. AI can complement designers in their professional activities, and they can also become this active agent that is contributing to the design process. So to stress a little bit more into this difference, the main difference between a tool and an instrument lies on the interaction with the user's creativity. Tools such as a lever or motor and instruments such as a typewriter or a computer can easily be distinguished when they are observed of how they are used. The instruments have no particular use and are so generic that they require human interaction to articulate a result. In contrast, a tool itself is created for specific use and is defined for a certain action. AI is so versatile that it can be used as a tool or as an instrument, allowing communication between different domains. And I will show you very quickly in the coming slides how I have used AI as a tool and as an instrument to work in a collaborative and multidisciplinary projects. And I think it's important to stress that I'm not saying we should only focus to use it as an instrument or we should only think about it as a tool. I'm saying we should use it in both ways. We just need to know how and why is it important to be used as a tool. So I think when we're thinking of AI as a tool, it should be when we're trying to understand what is there. So this is all about knowledge and discovery. So what we know right now is that all of these models are trained with an enormous amount of data. So we can already claim and say that they know because they have seen and read several or most of the content that we have produced on the internet. And what they're able to do is to discover, is to be able to find patterns that we were not, or it will have taken us longer to do. So the first approach that I use AI as a tool, this is one of my earliest publications. So when you see here, I will always have a QR code at the very top. This is a publication in 2019, and we were able, we created a model for aiding on food security, that it was able to automatically identify food resources and safe houses from satellite images after natural disasters and propose an optimization path to be able to set constraints about how many type of fruit trees you would like to collect in a specific timeline, or how much in following a road, how many of these food resources you will be able to collect. I also have wanted to stress that I am going to be naming the different AI research areas, because not everything is machine learning. There is a lot of other research that has been produced that we can leverage. Like, for example, here we're using computer vision and machine learning. And another approach, this is we developed an interface that is suggesting cooperation between airports that are facing similar challenges worldwide for humanitarian assistance. So if we're able to identify which airports are similar based on their infrastructure, demographic population, and needs in their built environment, we're able to identify which other airports in the world have the same features that we can learn what they've done in similar situations. Another work that we did is more related into well, still related to natural disasters, but here we wanted to develop a model that is able to detect changes after a natural disaster. And we were able to also do this multimodality fusion approach by correlating weather conditions, disaster response, topographic, and demographic data. I'm going to be very fast now that I know that I'm taking more than my 10 minutes. So here's another example that is about trying to capture spatial information from drone imagery to complement traditional transect analysis. This is the project that I'm terribly happy to be part of. So here we're developing HIV predictive models to, well, is a model that learns to predict HIV incidence from infectious disease data sets, helping target communications for prevention strategies. All right, I talked about tool. Let's do a very fast forward on instruments, because I think instruments, when you use AI as an instrument here, we're able to tag on thinking of it as creating instruments, and then we're able to imagine, right? Because I think AI, it's this navigating tool that can help us find what is there so we can move forward. So here in the line of disaster response, I created a search engine that combines humanitarian organizations, lessons learned, and disaster response research to address specific challenges. So here we're not saying or predicting anything, but we're rather creating an instrument for decision makers to understand what has been produced and how can this help the current situation. We created models that are trained to identify similar natural disasters from the last 20 years, allowing us to learn from past success and failures recorded on literature. An AI methodology. So here, for example, this is more into my teaching. So I am a design studio professor. So I try to involve a lot of data-driven computational tools in class. So here we wrote an article, so how to create a methodology to curate social media data to understand user needs, and how can these be helpful for a design project. Another project on the design studio is how can we use AI algorithms to create 3D models, and then based on user preference, how can we leverage these details into a project that can be a project that they're working on their class. More into my also collaborative work, I work with structural designers. So here we developed a AI pipeline to generate structurally stable 3D models from text prompt. So this is something that we're currently working on, and it is not to produce an image through a generative model paired with large language models, but is to generate 3D structures that can help us understand what are the limitations on our design. And this is based on one of the initial works that I've done. So here is how to work with generative algorithms to learn architectural principles and create structurally sound designs. So I've been working with AI for the last, let's say, 7 years, during my PhD, and then starting on a master's, and during my professorship at University of Florida. So what I wanted to stop my presentation on is how can AI help us to go beyond what we've already done today in the world. So I think AI is so versatile that can be used as a tool and as an instrument. And what you're seeing on the screen is just how barely the methodology on AI has been used in architectural practice. So my point on this slide is to say, we should start working with AI and testing pipelines. So we should start playing, because at the beginning of this lecture, we talk about how can AI only learn, well, how AI only learns from the center of the curve. And what I'm proposing here is that we want to distance from the center of the curve, which means that we want to approximate the distributions of the tail. So I propose to think of AI as being able to point into a particular direction, but we're the ones that decide whether that direction takes us where we want to go. We should start playing and exploring directions to take advantage of state-of-the-art technologies to create new processes that can emerge through the close collaboration between humans and artificial intelligence. I think we don't have to consider AI under the command or control, but it should be thought of as an active collaborator and as a player in this exploration. The idea is that technologies are used to augment human capabilities, and they should be tuned with us. So I want to stop here, and I want to bring this to later in the conversation. So thank you, everyone, for for bearing with me on this fast forward introduction of my work.
Thank you so much, Karla. That was amazing. Yes, we will follow up with questions with all the interesting points that you raised. I will continue with the second presenter, just because in the end we will have this interactive discussion session. Our next presenter is Ila Colombo, and Ila is an award-winning AI collaborator, artist, and creative director with over a decade of experience in the avant-garde world of design, art, architecture, and technology. Her unique perspective combines spatial computing, 3D printing, design art installations, and conceptual works, pushing the boundaries of design innovation. She's a co-director of Ross Lovergrove Studio and CEO and co-founder of Beyond, a Dubai-based multidisciplinary AI, R&D, and 3D PA practice, merging human-centric creativity with advanced computation and digital fabrication with the mission of developing circular adaptive solutions for the built environment. Ila is a member of the RIBA and an appointed member of the Architecture Program Advisory Board at the American University in Dubai. She lectures around the world and recently contributed to the landmark report on AI for creative industries by the Dubai Future Foundation and Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution, highlighting fundamental principles, insights, and guidelines for the technology. And her current research on both the practical and philosophical impacts of generative AI within the creative industries involves a range of aspects from specialized multimodal workflows, team training, students' education, and ethical considerations. So if I will just give a hint on Ila's presentation, you will find aspects of multimodal AI collaboration, who drives the creative narrative, AI ethics, new educational priorities, and evolving design processes. And with this, thank you, Ila, for joining us, and you can share screen and take over.
Hi. Thank you, Shermeen, for a very nice introduction. I'm going to just go very quick. And by the way, little parenthesis, I have a busy household and it's 10 p.m. almost in Dubai. So forget if you hear any noise. I'll try to keep everybody quiet around me. So I thought because we're all so incredibly talented and both engage in a practical, professional, and academic frameworks and work with AI, I thought I would craft my presentation more about the ethical considerations that I constantly work on and I'm deeply passionate about, and also both the semantics and the philosophical aspects of AI, more in relation about foresight in the future of a super intelligent age. Now, I build upon what everybody is talking about these days about AGI or superintelligence, and the latest blog post by Sam Altman referencing, for example, that AGI or superintelligent might be just a few thousand days away from us. So just as a little background on my own self and my own work, I'm multiracial. I'm Italian Brazilian with a Japanese half family as well. So I have multi-ethnic background. I also have a very interdisciplinary background. My journey is the definition of non-linear, if you want. anything from being a former athlete at high level, all the way to art, cultural heritage, technology, gaming. I used to be a gamer and studied molecular biology of the skin. So I have a combination of different interests and different backgrounds that I believe all converges into my understanding of what AI could mean for the future demographic or the future of humanity. These are some of my works. Obviously, some was mentioned already by Shermeen, so I'm going to go fast. And of course, I also utilize different kind of multimodal frameworks of generative AI, LLMs, retrieval augmented generation with trained specific models. But I'm going to skip this part and I'm just going to concentrate in the philosophical and questioning in a provocative way of what would superintelligent mean for creativity and where does the evolving role of the creator take place within this dynamic. So building upon what Karla has also highlighted, for me, it's very good that she's already introducing the fact that AI is not just but it's also morphing or changing between being a tool or an instrument. I go beyond that, and my understanding of what today superintelligence could be is not anymore an instrument and a tool, but it becomes a dynamic relationship. So co-creation at a codependent level, where the growth and the learning is not just from the AI standpoint of view, as in deep learning and evolution, if you want, in a task-oriented, data-driven way, but is a mutual growth. So what I sort of disagree with the majority of the growing curve, an exponential growth towards singularity, is that it's only looking at the perspective of the machine reaching singularity, when in fact I believe that there is potential for the human counterpart to also grow with the machine. And I'm going to show in my later slides how and why. So I see AI as a dynamic, evolving collaborator, but also the human as an evolving collaborator. So I don't believe we flatlined our capability of comprehension, of awareness, of capabilities and skill sets. And AI is an entity with which we form a metaphysical relationship characterized by mutual growth and adaptation. I'm a young parent. I have a 3-year-old, and the most straightforward analogy and metaphor I can give to this is the relationship of a new parent with a child, where you have the parent in constant state of becoming the parent, and that comes with adaptation, changing, questioning, in the same way, in the opposite way, if you want, but codependently, is the child, is the constant state of becoming, the constant state of potential. So none of the two are statics. We have the obviousness in the AI, which is exponentially growing, but I also think that the human is non-static, is not sedimentary, is in a constant state of potential becoming. So this is just a brief overview of what that collaboration in decision-making, in creation, in fabrication could look like. So what does that mean for the future? And it could be a near future, it could be a mid-near future or a long-term future, but we are going to face a new socio-technical landscape where we reach a few scholars, and I also believe it's named hybrid intelligence. So it's not just one type of intelligence, and it's not even binary.
Ila, we're not seeing your slides.
And I'm going to try to break down what does that mean. But AI is becoming more and more, and we see it today with our smartphones, if you want, and those tools and instruments that Karla also mentioned in. Oh, sorry.
Excuse me. Do you have a presentation going on while you're saying what you just told us?
Oh, so sorry. I didn't start my share screen, did I?
Okay, that's all right.
No.
Okay, sorry. I did have a presentation. So yeah, let me start again, but I'm going to skip. So you heard what you heard, and those are the things that I was saying. This is some of my work. It spans across multiple disciplines, from industrial design, architecture, product, AI, in terms of art, fashion, installations, and architecture. So this is what I was talking about, this symbiotic mutually codependent relationship where the AI is not just a tool, but is a collaborator. And both are in a state of becoming and in a state of constant learning and growing together. So yeah, here we are. This is what we face, is a new socio-technical landscape where we don't have binary singular intelligence, we have a collective universal intelligence, which is shared across. So we have human intelligence, artificial intelligence, whatever stands in between, and also collective intelligence. So this is just an exponential evolution of what we're facing today through technology. Next. So I see AI as an extended cognitive apparatus, where it's not going to be independent from us. And this is already kind of reflected in new startups like Neuralink by Elon Musk. But the moment we truly merge, which we are going towards that path, then it's just an extension of us metaphysically, physically, bodily, and of course that augments everything we think and co-create together. So I see human and machine as a codependent evolution where both curves of evolution grow together at different pace, at different heights. It's still a growing curvature. Now, I see experience as the core medium through which we achieve this, meaning experience not just of the machine improving over time through task-oriented and optimization, but also through experience and time, space being in between us, referring to what Karla was saying before, this interplay and playtime. So I totally agree with Karla. We should interact with the machine as early as possible, have interplay, have experimental workflows tested. There's nothing at this point that is right or wrong, and in trying to understand each other. And I'm going to share some examples of how crazy that play could look like. But anyway, experience is what's going to tie us together, where we both learn from each other. And this is beneficial, not just because obviously we get better because we understand more the world around us, but also the machine could improve in understanding us. So we know that deep learning works and we know that deep learning is great, but deep learning is also narrow, is incredibly narrow. It lacks context awareness. It lacks foresight in understanding cause and effect at a fast forward-pacing time frame. So not just 5 minutes from now, but 10 years from now, and so on and so forth. It lacks emotional intelligence, it lacks love, it lacks empathy. These are kind of things that the machine and AI, presuming is growing towards superintelligence, can learn from us and only from interacting with us and therefore building upon this experience. So what you see around in these slides radiating outside the core is will and awareness. This goes back to the analogy between a parent and a child. Both parties have to show willingness to learn and interact and have awareness of each other's party. And then grows into evolution of both as entities, and then understanding how policymaking can be built at a micro level, understanding where to draw the lines. Do we need any kind of lines? That brings us to educating future generations in the path forward, and then together growing critical thinking and ethics, which is an intrinsic part of this dynamic. Now, before I move forward and show you what some of those things that I mentioned look like or could look like, I want to take a step back in analyzing the evolution of creativity. So a lot of my work is reflected upon the question of what is creativity? Does creativity even exist? This is a brief slide, but is mentioning, does AI show we overestimate human creativity? And I strongly believe yes. I mean, this is going to be not liked. I just want to say that I'm a creator, I'm an artist myself, so I do really value what I do, and I love the act of creating and origination of an idea. But I don't believe creativity is intrinsically only of the human counterpart. So we know that human brains, for example, do not create in a vacuum. Everything we generate is very similar to retrieval augmented generation, where we have stored information, stored observations, stored memories, stored everything. And through neuroplasticity, through time, we just re-put together what we have learned subconsciously, unconsciously, consciously, and we generate new ideas. So this is very similar to how generative AI tools work today. So this is an example. This is some of my work, some here referencing even Neil Leach and Zadid, and it's just showing the similarity of what can come out through data training and then coming up with new ideas, but almost looking the same. Now, this is reflected in human activities. It's known throughout history, whether it's architecture, art, fine art, or literature even, nothing is truly original. So I'm questioning the concept of originality, whether it does truly exist. I partly say it doesn't. So where does this bring? Bring us? Those are some examples that are very known. Some are just a few years apart. Some are more decades apart, and so on and so forth. But between disciplines, we know that it's very, very rare to have an original unicorn of any kind. So if AI isn't doing anything fundamentally different to what our brain does, then what is agency? And I would add, what is intent? And where does an idea truly initiate? Those are questions that I would like maybe the panel to also build upon. I don't have straight answers to those yet, but this is where my brain is. And some of the crazy experimental work that I've been doing with generative AI tools that are publicly available, for example, Sora from OpenAI or Runaway, or even with large language models, I try to question, is creativity becoming a new hybrid phenomenon? Where, again, going back to hybrid intelligence, is not just of the human, maybe it's not even just of the machine, it's of nature, is of life and existence as a whole. This should be a little video, but I've been trying to experiment. What does it happen when you try to use generative AI tools without prompting? So whether I give it an image or I give it a problem, but without completing the prompt, I want to question whether the current available AI are showing any kind of intent to fill in the gaps, and therefore trying to understand whether there is any kind of creativity. Those are very simple examples, but this, for example, is an image video, and the scene changes entirely. And not just it changes entirely, the tool has grown the figures that were initially shown into full adult. So if I play it back, I put this image into Runaway, in particular, this one, and I just press generate. So it had to do everything on its own. And this is obviously mimicking data that it's been training upon, but it's changing the scene, pretending the adults are, the kids are growing into adults, and maybe there is a love story. I don't know, maybe I'm seeing too much into this, but there is definitely a problem-solving, task-driven intent to fill in the gaps of not having a prompt. So what drives creativity? I try to analyze in a scenario where superintelligence does evolve, what would be the different motivator factors to be creative. So we know the ones from the human counterpart. We have existential purpose, we have curiosity, we have ego and identity in relation to personality, and we have necessity. So a lot of the things we invented throughout history of mankind are because of a necessity. We had to solve a real problem. Now, what could be the motivations of AI? Well, it has its own existential and purpose-driven objectives like self-preservation and optimization, which we know through machine learning and getting better at whatever task. Would it have curiosity? I do believe AI is showing already signs of curiosity. I can't say I'm certain, but where could that curiosity lead? Potentially is a question mark. Certainly, it wouldn't have the same equivalent of ego and identity. And the necessity would be part of his existential and purpose-driven optimization. Would AI give up on creativity altogether because it would find it an unnecessary task? This is something that, of course, we can only speculate upon. But then going back to the evolving role of the human, I do believe that in a scenario where both parties have an agency, have an intent, and are true collaborators, first of all, it would be a cyclical loop. It's not a linear journey, and it wouldn't have a beginning and an end. So I see a future where kids grow together with the AI, and together they form a symbiosis. As I said before, But this is referential of one of the oldest allegorical time symbols that goes back all the way to the Egyptians. It's an Ouroboros and the Greeks. I take inspiration from this symbol to describe the fact that human and AI are going to be a growing cyclical experience and interplay. And I do believe that the human eventually will become more of a curator eye. What is the critical thinking, the critical objectiveness? What is good design and bad design? We're going to go more towards this kind of questioning as a co-creator. Another side of my work is understanding where does education lies in all of this and how does education evolve. I do believe that the current work curriculums are outdated and they should be adapted as fast as possible. But let's assume that, let's assume today already we know that, for example, GPT-4 and GPT-4o has PhD level of semantics, analytical logic, data understanding, and lexicon. So if deep learning and deep knowledge lies in the machine and not anymore in the human, and therefore time compresses also at a level of education because we don't have that necessity anymore, well, the human advantage can only then manifest and lie in mastering interdisciplinary capabilities, agility, and breadth. Breadth as in those kind of skill set. So it's not deep learning at deep knowledge at a human level, but is more being agile and being humanistic, more humanistic as in being human if you want, and having all of those things that we've been neglecting. So I bring life experiences forward, for example, go out and play adventure in the journey of the hero, to quote Campbell and Carl Jung. So those are the skills that I envision to be for the future: awareness, perception. Perception is never passive, by the way, and it's something that I still struggle to train and educate teams or students. Perception is something we seek for and we really train. And then we have cognitive elasticity and agility, resilience, being both mental and physical, fast analysis and fast troubleshooting. This is something that AI struggles with, for example, because of the deep learning being narrow. The moment it goes outside of its own box, for example, it still doesn't have that fast troubleshooting capability that a parent would have. And then physical strength and mental fitness, which I already mentioned. So I envision a future where the future belongs to those who can navigate across disciplines, think broadly, and adapt rapidly. Now, this is just a repetition of what I said in terms of new kind of education. And I do quote the hero's journey of Campbell and Jung, because I think we don't teach enough of this. Everything we teach about life is like being steady, being put, have a safe kind of linear journey, study, and then continue to kind of like master whatever you enter. It is a very narrow type of learning, which I believe is not going to be very helpful for the future, where everything is a constant state of change, constant state of becoming. And it, to reference part of my Japanese heritage, is the wabi-sabi. Everything is impermanent. And that is true of the technology. It has to be true of the human. Then a little chapter on, again, education and looking at the younger demographics, so very early years kids. This is a scientific studies that shows that poverty may affect the growth of a children's brain. Now, we know that, of course, you have poverty as in equivalent to lack of funds, lack of exposure, so therefore lack of good schooling, lack of life experiences. But what do we have today? Well, we have virtually anybody from around the world being potentially able to be exposed to AI. So this is not maybe true of today, but soon with 5G, 6G, and AI being deployed across different devices. So what does that mean? It means that young kids, at potentially and virtually at any age, they could have access to PhD level of understanding, or like at least discourse, as in conversational discourse, and understanding better the world around us. So this is what I was showing before, is the exponential growth of computing reaching singularity. I believe also the human brain, or the extended human codependent with AI capability, will grow together. This goes back to early kids in the future being able to learn all sorts of disciplines and sciences from very early age. I mean, this is a speculation on what can science in taking shapes in holograms, being teaching young kids all about biology and science. And then what happens if they can read Nietzsche or higher level of literature and philosophical discourse also being represented by AI. And so it becomes a discourse of reaching your optimum brain capabilities even at 5 or 6 of age. And of course, growing with the technology also at a fabricational level. So what would a child look like when it has the possibility of growing with the robotics and growing with the technology, building what is truly meant to be? So it's achieving this true potential of any human being. And this brings us to the last chapter, which is what we face today are 2 very big existential crises. Some are not so positive about AI. I still want to retain my positivity, but between the climate crisis and AI, they're both 2 giants we're facing. So the question is, can one help solve the other? I truly believe so, because of everything that I just explained. We're going to understand and open up possibilities that have been truly unprecedented. So we're going to be able to build architecture and urban environments and even natural environments that are going to allow us to truly achieve what we're meant to achieve in this world, which is being more conscious and gentle to the planet. And that was it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ella. This was fascinating. I do enjoy listening to you and Karla. So I'm excited, but we have to move on until we at the end of the presentation we'll have the discussion. I'll move on with Lorena. And Lorena is a licensed architect with LEED AP credentials, currently working full-time at Gensler while pursuing a Doctor of Design degree at Florida International University. Lorena's academic background includes a bachelor and a master of architecture from University of Miami, with her thesis on the architecture of augmented reality, leading her to speak at MIT Media Labs AR in Action Summit and invitations to participate in hackathons at Milan Design Week. Lorena's research explores the intersection of virtual and physical design, with a current focus on the impact of AI on architecture, on the industry, and the potential expansion of services. And with this, Lorena, we're excited to listen to you.
Thank you so much for the introduction. I'll try to keep some of my section brief in order for us to have the a vibrant panel discussion at the end. But before I go into this conversation that I'm really invested in today, which is understanding the future of design value in a professional context, just wanted to take a moment to talk about some of my prior research and just the background that I bring to this with my focus on AR and VR, where I really enjoy living in the intersections of everything from academia to the profession, from the physical to the digital. And some of these researches, not to go into depth into them, but they're really rooted in understanding how do we capture kinesthetic human intuition so that it has a direct impact onto our digital product. Because I found too often we were going from sketches and our instincts, and then that would live in one realm, and then someone else would translate it from their own kind of mind, not harnessing that exact input that's being provided. So one example of a research project that I had worked on was where I was actually linking my physical sketching experiences in virtual reality, linking Mindesk and Unreal with Rhino and Grasshopper, such that I could actually have a model that I was sketching live and making modifications in VR. And by moving certain points, it would change the computational geometric forms that at a click of a button would directly impact Revit and these design documentation drawings that we would see that goes into the real world. So in that moment, we would have our kinesthetic instincts would have a physical impact, because there's too often, I think there is a disconnect of when we're in a physical space, we know something feels good or it doesn't feel good. And it's all about understanding how to capture, quantify, and maybe communicate some of those intangible moments of what is it that we value, appreciate, and enjoy. And so in that line of thinking, that really leads me into the way that I see my kind of academic research. But to provide a little bit more context, I'm currently working at Gensler full-time. I'm really appreciative of the human-centered focus that the company has, especially in the context of understanding AI's impact. But I'd like to just share a little tidbit of what I'm allowed to share, of what Gensler is working on, so that you can just understand the framework and some of the insights that I'm able to glean off of when collaborating in these environments. So Gensler really sees AI as a partner, as we've all spoken about, as AI needing to extend and really augment what designers can do. But it's amazing to see that kind of manifested in a professional context, where the data of the work that we have produced previously becomes our own currency. We are mining our own data in order to understand how we can better our designs and capture what has been done in the past as a best practice for the future. Understanding that we can then become more creative and also use that to our advantage to build more carbon neutral designs and buildings. So what that looks like is that Gensler is actually partnering with some of these tech giants, including Autodesk, OpenAI, NVIDIA, Adobe, Microsoft, and Midjourney, to actually build our own versions that are secure, data safe, within our own servers and so on, and various variations of that. And that it also can lead into some of the tools, the proprietary tools that Gensler has built out, which are some things that are called G-blocks, which G-blocks helps with programmatic massings and spatial design, so that we can actually see data of how the building might evolve, financial metrics, and so on. G-floors produces test fits based off of certain parameters, and G-planet is something that's coming out as well, which is integrating some of that sustainable information. So this is just to give you a little bit of a background of what this huge impactful company is doing across the world, that is going to, I think, provide some kind of a precedent through for other companies to perhaps learn from, but also to challenge in different ways. So now, as I'm working on my DDES, I'm taking the consideration of these fascinations that I've had in my past of trying to communicate and quantify intangible ideas or intangible metrics, and also understanding that I am in this kind of professional context. And one of the big challenges in the profession that everyone's asking is, well, what is the future of our industry? What is this going to all look like now that we have all of these tools and all of these abilities now given to us? How is the perception of our clients going to affect what we're able to do, how we're able to support our designers, and really move our industry forward? Again, everyone's asking what's going to change and what's going to remain. I think we understand technology is changing. I do believe design will remain and we will be extended by AI. I loved Ila's presentation previously in that kind of augmented capacity and expression. In order to think about that, I do think we need to take a moment of all of this self-reflection to understand what is it that is uniquely human that we can ground ourselves in. And it takes on two lenses. One is a bit introspective, and one is a bit more of a kind of value add of a value proposition financial aspect. But just to kind of keep it simple, it seems we all understand AI is very good at processing large quantities of information, creating, summarizing, analyzing large quantities of information. And humans are good at discerning quality, understanding context, and bridging gaps between what is an intuitive interaction that I face with someone on a day-to-day basis, and how I might even perceive someone. I presented a design and someone winces. That little wince tells me that someone isn't liking that, and I transition my tone, I transition the way that I'm speaking about my design, and suddenly you see that they're understanding better, and you can lean in that direction. These are things that only humans can do and bridge these kinds of gaps. So in order to understand how that can really affect our profession, I started creating this table for myself, and perhaps it's too tabular, and I know there's a thousand different ways to perceive this, but if you can bear with me, I started trying to understand what is it that human professionals do, and what is it that, ranging from people-centric to technical all the way across the top, and from production up to critical thinking. And I put these into these sort of columns just for myself to help try to understand where we might go, from client facing to team management, product and service design, to certain levels of expertise. So in the past, before AI, you might say humans were doing all of this, including all of the production tasks of taking meeting minutes and identifying little minor errors and so on. Well, already we know AI is taking some of those tasks on. I mean, even a software that's open source and available to us of Midjourney, enabling us to create drawings perhaps without even prompting, that's already kind of leading into this way. Then as we go into a stage 2 of what AI is going to be able to do for us, we start seeing this idea of different softwares, maybe things that Gensler is producing with Gblocks, Gfloors, and Gplanet, or even XKool and many others out there, where you're using AI to sort of start identifying critical parameters and bending and shaping the building in order to create a feedback loop to that data. So that's great. That's leading into this, but here's where people get concerned is like, wait, what about this design column? What is AI going to be able to take over? Can it take over everything that we do? And I think let's be honest, there are some, if a client is looking for just a cookie cutter, test fit, something that's been done before, will AI be able to replicate some things? Yes. If people are looking for quantity type work, they can. But when we talk about quality type design, where they're looking for innovation, they're looking for something that's unique, interesting, not something that hasn't been done before and isn't referential of other work, that is something that designers can do. And I think when we focus on those critical thinking skills and we focus on what it is that we're able to do and communicate that very well, and that's the key, communicating that to our clients in a powerful way, then I think we actually have an opportunity to do so much more than we've ever done before. And just a couple of, big concepts that I focus on quite a lot in my own research, but I think just to kind of throw it out there, a big conversation is how do we educate our new teams and our students in understanding this, because a lot of those critical thinkers, quote unquote, at the moment are now our principals or senior level people. So what happens when those production tasks are taken over by AI? How can we give people the opportunity to learn, design, grow, and critically think? We have to double down on mentorship and really be investing in the education of even early level individuals in their career. And I think there's a huge conversation here to be had about reframing our profession from time versus the kind of value that we bring to the table. Right now, we're an hourly profession. Everything is, 1 hour of my work is equal to a certain dollar amount in pay, but that's just not the way we're going to be able to think about it, because we're bringing so much either data or intuition to the table. So we need to, I think, reframe the way that we think about that. And I'd like to challenge us to start thinking about ourselves as designers. Perhaps on one level, there's a communication challenge, but there's another level of we have new tools and new technologies that are coming into the fold here, where we may be able to see ourselves as, that concept of T-shaped individuals, where we have a breadth of expertise and a depth of knowledge. We may be able to reframe ourselves as a T-shaped industry, where we have a depth of design and architecture, a depth of design and architecture, but we can extend our breadth to have these other tools that we're able to do with AI and emerging technologies. In such a context, you might think of traditional process as a design, bid, build from start to finish. But even design today, people are experimenting with, can designers also do strategy and brand design at the beginning? Can we also have physical products and things like this? But I think there's opportunities in the future, considering this new context and how much critical thinking we're doing and how much we're able to extend our impact now, to adding in layers of really focusing on the digital twins strategy and understanding how to best optimize our buildings mechanically, even from an environmental standpoint. Different product strategies of actually being advisors to some of these tools that are being generated for the design industry to best capture intuition with things like MindDesk. Even understanding augmented reality and designing an augmented layer of our buildings that go along with the physical layer, and expanding into user interface design. I think that would be a great avenue for architects to kind of merge into. So design tomorrow could be really expanding our definition of what architecture is. And I just want to, this is a big concept, but I don't want to dive into it too much. But the idea here is just that I think architects, historically, we tend to speak to ourselves. We speak in the context of beautiful drawings, images, pictures, and so on. But there is a challenge right now where AI is able to create images in such a fast way where it's almost like there's a disconnect now where maybe our clients who are not necessarily focused on what it is that we're capable of doing, they're seeing an image and not understanding what it is that the designers are bringing to the table. So I think we need to educate ourselves much more on how do we communicate value in the context of what resonates with our designer or our clients. And that's along the lines of return on investment, optimization, reputation, and loyalty. This is a tool that I'm using to help communicate this intangible of design value or something that feels a little bit more intrinsic. And, I speak a lot about business and the business proposition, but it all really comes back to the fact that we really need to be able to be empowered to be more human. And that does come with the kind of financial backing that we're able to do that and be able to maximize on what we're capable of growing into with these new avenues and possibilities. So just to sum up, there is an understanding. We have to understand what this means to our productivity. I think there needs to be a lot of study on education and mentorship, understanding this big idea of repositioning our industry of a value-based industry over a time hourly based industry, and thinking about the services that we can offer to really expand what it means to be an architect. And I think, the future of design value is really this idea of being extended designers that are empowered by AI.
Thank you so much, Lorena. That was, again, great. And I'll follow up with the questions, but I do know that we need to move on maybe a faster pace. We have 3 other presenters, and I promise we'll have also a great discussion. Now, the next presenter is Adeline. Adeline Chan is a REBA architect working in Hong Kong and is founder of her startup AAL Innovation after her last experience as a director of an architectural company and a teaching about AI at the University of Hong Kong. Adeline's current work includes offering AI-focused services and developing AI softwares for clients in the AEC industry, targeted at their pain points on procurement, project management, and ESG reports. She regularly speaks about AI strategies implemented in the design industry and use cases at events for a variety of institutions and enterprises, including the Housing Authority of Hong Kong, Hong Kong Institute of Architects, luxury brands such as Chanel, universities in Hong Kong, as well as Africa and many other cases. In Hong Kong, she co-organizes MCAI, a 250-person network focused on AI. At the same time, she's a deputy design manager at a French contractor company in Hong Kong and working on government projects, as well as looking at the innovative strategies used in construction. And currently, Adeline also serves as senior strategic development manager at XKool Technology and the product ambassador at Cringe 3D. With this, Adeline, please start sharing screen, and we're excited to listen to you.
Thanks so much. Thank you, Shermeen. Hi, everyone. My name is Adeline, or if you're European, Adeline. I hope my screen is sharing now. Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. So, yes, I'm going to be very swift and prompt with mine. And before I go into it, I have to say I'm getting goosebumps because just from the presentations that we've seen so far, absolutely brilliant. And I'm just so happy to be here. Anyway, enough about that. Let's go into it. So thank you for the introduction. So I will skip this part where, everyone's doing amazing stuff anyway. I do want to start with something a little personal. And I feel like, every one of us in here got into AI for some particular reason. And I'd like to share very quickly mine. I start with a professional earthquake. So like Ila, I was actually also an athlete in Taekwondo. So in the past, I was an athlete, and then actually I made my first career shift and became an architect. So I was a director of a small company, and we were building hospitals in Africa. That's another story. After that, I became an AI researcher at HKU. I started to teach there as well. And then now I founded my company. So something happened here. Something happened here. So this is a conversation between me and my client. By the way, he's no longer my client, he's a friend, and this is why. So at that time, I was doing a lot of marketing, business developments. I was in Vietnam, met with this very wealthy investor. Long story short, he has some land, he has a lot of time. So of course I'm like, hey, what do you want to build? He's like, a sports center. I'm like, very cool. Midjourney just came out. So it's like, I kind of know how to use AI. Let me show you how. So it's like trying to brag my way into it. So he has a lot of time, right? So he's like, show me how to do it. So I did show it how to do it, show him how to do it. And he did actually learn how to use Midjourney. And those who know Midjourney knows that it's a low barrier of entry kind of AI tool, right? Which meant this is what he did. He did a prompt, very basic, and he was fascinated. He's so proud of himself, and I was proud of him too. And it's like, it's amazing. It's great. It's like, this is really cool. He's gonna keep working on it. I'm like, great, awesome. Let's catch up again on the concept design fee proposal that I sent over, right? This happened. What happens actually is that in Vietnam, there aren't that many building regulations. Well, I should backtrack. Sorry, don't quote me on that. There are, but since the plot of land is his, and since I think it is a lot less stringent than the regulations in Hong Kong or in the UK, basically he just needs a concept design and a rendering, basically hands over to contractor. They draw up the shop drawings and voila, it's done. So I'm like, amazing. Basically from that quick rendering that you've done, I guess you just wanted something very basic. There you go. There's something very basic, and the contractor just gets their hands dirty and start working. So we shook hands, and of course he's a friend. But actually what I didn't realize at that time was that it shook me, because I went into my architectural education, got my license to become an architect, did not expect that I would have this kind of crisis, which is my client actually didn't really need my help in the concept design. The client went through AI, did the concept himself, even though it wasn't like, Saha did or anything like that, but he found what he needed and then did the construction. So basically I was in depression. It was no joke, but I found my way. So 2 months of really thinking about what is going on, because I'm not the kind of person that would kind of put my head in the sand and be like an ostrich and pretend nothing happened and just go on with my day. With my company back then, I wasn't going to do that. I knew something had to change. If one person's productivity with AI equals 3 people's without, what the hell are those 3 people going to do? I'm very practical and thinking, okay, if this is a company structure, do we even need that many people? So I do think I come from a very practical point. I was really, on the front line in trying to get work for a company. So I understand, the business side of things in terms of what is needed with the profit margins, and how does AI now come and fit in to the whole existing infrastructure, in the company scale and in the industry scale. So I think there are 4 roles designers can take, and ranging from different scales. The least scalable way is to use AI to design. And the reason why it's least scalable is because you saw that my client or friend now was able to design himself. So therefore, I think it's least scalable. But then the next would be designers designing the AI workflows, like Conf UI workflows, or even making their own LoRa models, and perhaps those can be monetized as well. And then the next level is actually designers teaching others how to use AI to design. And I think this also comes back to, we mentioned about mentorship previously, or, how the education is going to change because of AI. And then actually the last one, the most scalable option to take or way to go is to build our own SaaS, or even go further into, I think some of you guys are already doing it, into like new software, new ways, because this is a blue ocean. Gen AI in design is still a blue ocean, slowly getting saturated, but I think it's something we can leverage. So in the old way, if we just talk about concept design, it takes about 7 days. Personal experience takes about 7 days, some back and forth brainstorming, 3D modeling, and 2D rendering. Now, with very various tools like Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, LookX, all that amazing tools out there, really it's less than a day. Really, we can get iterations very, very quickly. And I want to kind of bring this up here, not to directly compare the architectural services market to the generative AI market. The truth is, it is projected to be 1.3 trillion for the generative AI market in 2032. And I just think that it would be very nice if architects can kind of leverage that or benefit from that as well. One of the tools that I'm building right now with a client is a chatbot that integrates into their system. And then there's another one, which is like a tender comparer. And then I also understand that there are many people who want to look into the compliance. How do we get AI to regulate or to work on regulation compliance? And this is how it currently works at a contractor or like a design and build situation. The architect needs to check if the design complies to the regulations. Then there's an actual individual checker. It is actually an entity, a role, whose primary responsibility is to just check the drawings. And then the contractor themselves, they have secondary responsibility to check the drawings, and then the client. So 4 parties, all the stakeholders have to check manually. That is the existing current situation. And I don't think that AI is going to come and just take away the checker's role. I think it's going to be integrated. Whether it's a tool or instrument, we can further discuss. But either way, I think it is very much integrated. It will be very much integrated 5, 10, 15 years. And it will be soon like policy driven either or money driven. Like being very practical here, I think those are the 2 main things that is going to make a big change. And since I'm more familiar with the REBA design stages, I would say, from, I guess, a not as technical person point of view as some of you guys, the yellow is showing how we can already leverage them. Like average Joe person can like start using ChatGPT, Midjourney, but all the really cool stuff like the optimization, the machine learning, those probably require a PhD or someone who needs to take further courses. And the yellow is highlighting how those tools can already be implemented in the first few stages of REBA, from strategic definition up to spatial coordination. And then for the rest, it would be perhaps machine learning can help with optimization. So I want to quote something that Wan Yuhe, who is the CEO of XKool, has said before. The real innovation comes when we are entering the data-driven design stage, meaning we start off with something with a very smart BIM model that can read what it is showing us, that we can even talk to them or even let us know if there's a, like, for example, in a Revit model, if you have a void, like the door does not exist and you're falling off the slab, it doesn't give you a clash, warning because it's not a clash. Something like that. I think it will become a lot more smart, and perhaps Autodesk AI is like moving towards that direction as well. So I'm not going to go too deep into this because I know we have a time constraint. But right now we're graphic driven. Even if we use Midjourney to design, it's graphic driven. You're showing a client a graphic, and you start from there. Later on, you have those gaps like it contradicts with the regulations, is over budget, then the site constraints, etc. So there are so many tools out there. Each of them are good at different things. And I think I like to explain to other people that it is particularly your design is strong, or your design methodology is strong when you're able to use different tools during your different for different design cases. It's like you're in the kitchen and you're cooking with different utensils. And for branding and marketing, you can use different ones for concept or prototyping, and same for product design and interior design architecture, design, etc. So is AI a disruption, disruptive innovation in our industry? So this is very funny. It's an extract from the AI reports from Riva. They ask, let's just look into the second one here. The building design is so complex now. We need more and better digital tools. So 49% said yes. And then look at the last question here. My practice has invested resources in AI R&D. Only 20% had said yes. Okay, so 50% of people think, yeah, we do need AI, and then 20% says we have already. So there's obviously discrepancy here. Why? From some questionnaires that I've done with some clients or potential clients, apparently they want to see other people doing it first, which is very much normal in our industry. There are trust issues, liability. It's a construction industry. Of course, we want to see something that is more secure. Bloomberg statistics says that the businesses increase their performances by 7-fold when AI is adopted, and architecture is one of them. So this is on a company structure point of view. I'm just saying that AI can kind of help out with some of the roles. I can be very diplomatic and say, now they can go do other creative stuff. Honestly, I think there will be a transition period where people are going to have to find out what they do when that happens. Just being very realistic, and of course, I'm also seeing it now on the ground, because right now, there are more public clients than there are more public clients than private clients in this economic situation. And currently, the clients internally, they have their design managers, and then they outsource all these other consultants. So what is going to happen very soon is that the consultants will soon have their own AI teams. And then soon the government is going to have to find their own AI design project manager to manage those teams. And then later on, perhaps everyone will just have some AI expertise integrated into their, either it's in the client side or in the consultant side. And then eventually, everyone will need to be, human machine collaborating. And that is how I see it in, let's say, 10 years time. So for myself, I accept that I don't have a technical background, but I think I like to take some risk, and I think there is more risk in not taking any risks. So with that, I hope that in some ways I can make an impact by bridging the knowledge gap. There's a knowledge gap between clients and myself, and there's a knowledge gap between myself and the computational designers I work with that I point. Some of them have a master's in computational design or a master's in machine learning, or even they're from programming and biomedical sectors. They have nothing to do with architecture, but I dare call myself I don't know about expert, but I'm in the domain, and I'm the mediator. And I find this, wow, I did not expect myself to take up this role. I've always gone into architecture school thinking I've become an architect, and now I'm some new role that I just made up for myself. Is this going to work? I have no idea. We're going to see. So there are the client pain points, and then the very technical people, like the programmers, amazing skills that have made these solutions, like many different kinds of they have like a base model and a large language model as a base model, and then they're trying to solve some kind of pain point, but they are not able to reach the client, or they don't know how to market it, or they are not familiar with the pain point themselves. And I find that, I can actually help them to link them up through my own sets of skills, with my knowledge of what the clients feel like they could be solved, and also what the solutions are already available. So I'm almost done. This is another slide from the AI reports. It seems like architects are not, the surveyed architects anyway, are not feeling very positive about future employment opportunities. And I don't blame them, but I think it's about the mindset, because the traditional architects employment opportunities, I personally am not very positive about it too. But I think it's because the roles are just changing. Like, for example, there are new job roles out there. Like BIG is looking for a design technology manager, and Spaghet looking for a full stack developer. I'm showing this to make a point to say, are people still looking for jobs such as architecture assistant or architects? Are they still looking for that? Because I think the demand is changing in the industry. Therefore, either the institutions should reconsider what kind of professions for professionals they should educate, or people should start thinking about what kind of skills they need to have in order to supply for the demand in the industry. And for sure, it can't replace project management expertise, on-site experience. Like I remember one of the sites I had in Africa, there were lions and we had to herd them away. Otherwise, the hoarding wouldn't work. I don't know if a machine can help me with that right now, but I just feel like the project management experience is something that is very human and cannot be replaced. So I think we actually talked about this. We mentioned it as well. Like we have all the answers, like Karla was saying, the machine can answer any question. But then what was the questions? What is the question? So I think it's up to us to ask. So I think the answer would be human-machine collaboration. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, Adeline. This was amazing. Again, these are amazing presentations, and I wish we have time to discuss briefly after, but I think we will hold on my questions and our interaction after the last two presentations. So we have two more presentations from Smaro and Oumayma. So I'll ask Smaro to go next and to introduce Smaro. She is a practicing architect and engineer from Greece, School of Architecture, Faculty of Engineering at AUTH, class of 2022. Her practice focuses on exhibition and museum design, as well as historic building and monument restoration. She has practiced in research projects regarding history of architecture, urbanism, new technologies, and visual arts for more than 8 years. Smaro's work focuses on the intersection of new technologies and architectural heritage, researching ways to bridge collective human past with the digital heterotopia. She has published and presented her research at multiple countries, the Netherlands, Singapore, and recently Georgia Tech. Smaro has been teaching second and fourth year design at FAU. And she is also part of the organizing committee of Digital Futures and has organized and participated in certain lectures and panels on AI. Now, she has completed her studies in a master's program, a program of preservation, conservation, and restoration of cultural monuments at AUTH, and she's currently pursuing a PhD with focus on AI and architecture at FAU. Smaro is also my student last spring, and I'm so proud of her. Yes.
Thank you
Go ahead,
so much
Smaro.
for the introduction, Shermeen. Thank you. That's a really generous introduction. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick and present. My name is Smaro again. I hold a Master's of Architecture, a Master's of Science, and I'm currently getting my PhD. I'm splitting my time here in the US between the Connected Autonomy and Artificial Intelligence Lab, which is actually a computer science lab, where I'm also taking classes from their graduate program in AI, their Master's in AI. And also I'm working under the Creative AI Lab, where we're teaching right now Design 7, which Professor Yousif has also taught in the past. So to begin, I would like to share some things about my trajectory and my other research and what led me to be more infatuated or interested in artificial intelligence as primarily a designer and a researcher. And of course, like an architect, or I feel like every architect has some sort of curiosity that leads us towards research one way or the other. So these are some images from a workshop that I took part in that was 2 weeks of stone mining and carving in the Akkadian forest in southern Greece. And before that, I had taken time, almost 2 months, to photograph in a Roma settlement where I took pictures of not only the architectural artifacts and kind of these atemporal or temporary constructions that they used as a shelter, but also the people in the settlement. And after that, I had the opportunity to teach a graduate course on creative placemaking and urbanism and art in the urban sphere, for which had the student body was primarily comprised of young females from 18 to 30 years old. So that was kind of the impetus for the creative placemaking project that we based on the book The Subversive Stitch, Embroidery in the Making of the Feminine by Rosiska Parker, which was also kind of a back-feeding loop with another project that I had for a women's museum, where the artifacts were mainly crafted by women or were destined as ornaments for women. And this is that project. And then for the creative placemaking, we took that as inspiration, the stitching, embroidery, and all these different ways that women used to express their creativity and their emotions in previous generations in order to create installations in the public sphere. So, and this project was also featured and presented in the European Commission in Brussels. So why am I saying all this is that in urbanity, this is another project that I did as a research project with Worcester Polytechnic Institute in Thessaloniki, where we explored refugee gastronomy in the urban sphere in the historic center of the city. And we mapped out kind of like anthropogeographies or like people's geographies in the urban sphere. And the reason I'm saying all that is that it led me organically to understand how multimodal and multifaceted the context can be in architecture and how many different layers that can encode or enclose. And that led me to be very interested in artificial intelligence, data analysis, and how we can embed and encode all this data for an algorithm to search through or like design for. This is from a panel that I was a discussion panel 2 years ago, the first one that I spoke on artificial intelligence, even before the conferences in Greece amongst the fellow computer scientists. And that kind of like got into my nerves or whatever. But after having all these different experiences, I was led to think, what really is the context? So according to Nicholas Negroponte, intelligence is a behavior, and it implies the capacity to add to, delete from, and use stored information. What makes this behavior unique and particularly difficult to emulate in machines is its extreme dependence on context, time, locality, culture, mood, and so forth. For example, the meaning of a literary metaphor is conveyed through context. Assessment of such meaning is an intelligent act. A metaphor in a novel characterizes the time and culture in which it is written. So what he's trying to explain to me is basically the zeitgeist, as we say, or like the spirit of the time, what we mean when we say something, and that is a big thing with text-to-image generators, where some latencies, or let's say some aspects of especially architectural heritage or architectural figures that are very seminal to us within the field are, let's say, overlooked. For example, how much more information does an LLM or a text-to-image generator holds for, let's say, Le Corbusier or Zaha Hadid versus Lina Bobardi? And that is basically based on the fact that it's very much more discussed online. Also for Artemisia Gentileschi and all these different female figures that are very seminal, but maybe a little bit niche yet, because feminist theory in architecture is still, I wouldn't say underdeveloped, but I would say it's not in the central debate that we're having right now in architecture. So with that being said, in my professional practice and projects, I try to create narrative spaces through the interpretation of different elements that are given to me by the client. So for example, for the design of the museum for Alexis Zorbas, we created a lot of, in a vernacular building in northern Greece, we created a lot of digital art installations that have to do with turning images into videos from different historic figures, or like creating interactive applications that you can talk to and interrogate, or like get a deeper understanding of the story. And that is also translated in another project that I have, where you see like the design here is heavily influenced by the vernacular artifacts, be it the weavings, the the carpets, all these different elements that have to do with our heritage in Greece. I'm Greek in origin. I think that's important to say. Maybe I overlooked that. And then for the museum of the city of Messaloniki, which is a very historic city for the Greek liberation struggle in the 1830s. And then lastly, this project I also presented in the Nuwe Institute in the Netherlands, the new Institute for Architecture and TU Delft, amongst the fellow academics that are a lot more, let's say, established than me, such as Anna Miliaki from MIT, where I worked on the museum archive of parliamentsman, Greek parliamentsman, and also the local newspaper and the photographer of an area in northern Greece. And when I was given all this collection, accumulation of data, I was thinking to myself, how can I present all these different things in a comprehensive way for visitors to understand, but also make their own conclusions, draw their own conclusions when they're coming into the space in a way that is more close to an art installation rather than a linear narration of a story. So in order to do that, I came up with some installations that have to do with deep neural networks of like classifying, let's say, the images into clusters, or creating some immersive installations with mirrors that have to do with emulating the feeling of being, let's say, in a photography shop in the 1930s and so on. And with all that being said, here again, it's very important to understand the context and the fact that AI doesn't comprehend this particular context because it's very much overlooked. It's very niche, it's very structured and within a certain period and community. So in order to do that, you have to fine tune. And this is my approach. Like I start with the data and the clarity of the data that is given to me for a project. And then like I extrapolate based on that. I don't see myself as somebody that has the tool and then decides the workflow based on the tool. Because when you start with a client that has a very specific agenda or a very specific narrative that they're trying to push, it's very important to not only abide by that, but also like make your own critical assumptions and comments on the based off of what is given to you. And when I was presenting the project last year, actually in the Netherlands, it was very interesting how Anna Miliaki said, okay, but I was in her eyes kind of like perpetuating a debate where it was by default a canonical narrative because it's the personal archive that of a, let's say, patriarchal or like very canonical male figure. And I took that very deeply into consideration when I was doing my next projects, because it is true that our choices as designers or as people that are into heritage or whatever is to be preserved for future generations, we structure the narrative for the future. And as Ila said, this is a tail-biting snake. We get to actually perpetuate what we experience from the past or whatever conclusions we make based on the past. So when I came to the US, I started designing the workflows as a systems kind of approach with artificial intelligence, because I got a project for this project I call latent petroglyphs, because I was tasked to design the museum for rock art in northern Greece. And based on the petroglyphs that are etchings, here is the location for the museum. Here is Kavala, the city of Kavala, and a big mountain that is around. This is the site for the museum. Petroglyphs are basically open-air carvings that date from prehistory all the way to the Middle Ages. And they have a symbolic meaning, be it animals, bows, people, or whatever else, and they're used as navigation signs within the mountainside. So here is an example of a petroglyph. There are 8 classes that were found in that specific region, such as animal, bows, chariots, deer, hunters, some things that are non-interpretable, sheep, also because Greece is adjacent to the sea for the most part, and people. And this is where I started first designing the workflow and then coming up with the design based on the system that I have set up to design the forms, to actually find the forms. So I used the GAN to generate deepfake petroglyphs, and then I created my own data set of 100 different massings for the different, it's basically the building program encoded in 4 different colors. And I created a data set that's 100 different variations of what the building can schematically look like, which in my eyes, I think, because based on what Lorena said, sometimes AI is more bounded to be used by people that possess a large data set of their own work already. Whereas with smaller practices such as mine, which employs like, 2-3 people at a time, whenever we get a bigger project, even more or whatever, you really cannot have that type of luxury of having a large data set to train a model based on your own bias or style. So this is where generating data sets comes in, and having these massings was really like something that can take 1 week, 2 weeks for a team of 2 or 3 people. I did it myself, but that's besides the point. So for me, the impetus was also, the driving force was also figuring out a way, engineering a way that smaller scale design practices, which are very much present and alive and like doing well in Europe, can generate their own style in a comprehensive way, in a more like down-to-earth way. So these are some of the images from the design that came from all this workflow. And I just want to briefly show this. I really like this. I found it in Bruno Zevi's book, The Modern Language of Architecture, but it's basically from an Architectural Association journal from the 60s. And it shows that kind of like process of narrating, somebody typing, and then building in real time, which is something that we're actually coming very close to. So it's true that we're filling in a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way that we use LLMs or all these different networks right now. And also this is from Peter Cook's book, Experimental Architecture in the 1970s, where he imagines a cityscape or an environment where all kind of cohabits with the new or the inflatable structures or all these different urbanist ideas and utopias. And this is how I approached the architectural archive of my own city, Thessaloniki, which was actually burned to the ground in 1917 and was redesigned rapidly afterwards in the eclecticism or Beaux-Arts or like, let's say, Belle Epoque style, or even Art Deco from 1924 to 1940, let's say, until the break of the Second World War. And this is where we see that I had the access and I curated a data set of 2,250 buildings or 78 buildings, let's say. And I used that network to train, I use that data set, I'm sorry, to train a deep neural network in order to generate deep fake facades that can kind of approach the latencies or broaden the search space for new architecture in the urban fabric of the historic center. And based on that approach, new compositional values kind of emerged through the system that I had implemented, which show the difference in the periods of the reconstruction of the city. And then based on another professional project that I had for the redesign of this, this was my initial redesign, but after the completion of the study, I was like, oh, now that we have all these different technologies, realistically, could I have done something else? And this is the retrospective kind of introspection of an architect that can occur in many different levels with AI, because you can create variations of either your own style or your own architecture. And this is basically the project. This was the 2 plots that I had to redesign. Those were the actual designs that were submitted in 1925 for their construction, but were never realized or implemented. And this was the stage of their completion. There were 2 incomplete buildings, basically, that could be filled in, let's say, up to 5 stories. So based off of that, these are again the historic kind of like submitted facades from 1925. I had to create an interpretation of that, my own This is the latter, let's say the section below is generated with an AI network. But what I had to do was actually in Paint or interpret whatever was happening in these 3 floors, 2 to 3 floors. So this is what AI came up with. The first design that we saw, the first rendering was my own design, but this is what AI came up with based on that assumption. And it's really interesting to kind of like pit ourselves against or see where we stand versus that, versus the networks. And also based on my own design that was already kind of like submitted and completed and all that, it created many different variations that seem somewhat different from the initial ideation or like the initial design. So I have delved into theory, history, pedagogy, computation, and rule-based systems to be able to kind of craft these ideas and come up with a theoretical debate to pair them. And to be honest, these are some words that also describe my research, such as preservation, tools, emergence, heurism, search space, ideation, interpolation, data, phenomenology, as Karla said about the tools versus the instruments or the collaborators. I'm starting to see AI more as a collaborator as we're closing into singularity, the concept of singularity, as Ray Kurzweil describes it. Where machines are going to be able to do each and every task that a human is proficient in a better or faster way and so forth. But through all this interpolation and search, I have come into a new project, which is the Museum of Weaving. I haven't yet delved into it completely, but for me, it always comes back to the data and whatever the context gives me, be it more into object-driven or like narrative-driven, language-driven. So for the Museum of Weaving, I have a big data set of these loom weaved carpets, and I have to kind of use those in a workflow that we're yet to see. Like I'm still working on it, but I just wanted to kind of like touch on my next step. So thank you so much for your attention. I hope I didn't go a lot beyond time, actually. And yes.
That's fine. No, thank you so much, Smaro. We are going beyond time, but I think these are all amazing work. So we would continue with one more presentation before we open the discussion. The next presenter is Oumayma. Oumayma Moufid is a PhD student at the Hassania School of Public Works in Morocco and a Fulbright Research Scholar alumna from the University of Miami. She conducts research in the field of geography and urban planning, focusing on emerging technologies such as AI and digital twins for smart and sustainable urban planning and infrastructure management. Oumayma has an academic background in geospatial data science and surveying engineering, along with professional experience in urban planning at the National Agency of Urban Regeneration and Rehabilitation of dilapidated buildings in Morocco. Oumayma, the floor is yours, and you can share screen and present. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shermeen, for the presentation. I will share my screen. Is it visible for you?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much, Shermeen, for the presentation. As you mentioned, I'm a PhD student in Morocco and recently Fulbright Research Scholar alumna from the University of Miami. And I'm conducting research in the field of geography and urban planning with a focus on the use of emerging technologies in sustainable urban planning. And today, in my presentation, I will move on from the architecture and design skill to the urban planning skill, in which we are dealing with urban spaces, neighborhoods, and cities. And I will focus on my ongoing research projects on urban regeneration, and I will present quickly how AI and digital twins can enhance this this challenge in urban projects.
Oumayma, just so you know, we are seeing, I don't know if the presenter view, so we're not seeing full screen.
Oh, okay. I will present the full screen. Is it now? It's okay.
Ouais, ça marche.
Okay. So before I start, I would like to define what is an urban regeneration project, just to have a clear idea about what is an urban regeneration, and to talk about a common idea on this kind of project. So if we take a look on the literature about urban regeneration, we'll find like a common definition, which is urban regeneration is an integrated urban approach that acts on dilapidated urban spaces to enhance their physical, social, economic, environmental conditions while also preserving their cultural heritage. So, in general, it's an integrated approach that tries to resolve a multidimensional problems of an urban space with the aim of improving the urban quality of life of this urban space with also its community and the population that lives in this urban space. So we talked a lot about AI and we know what is AI, but before talking about how AI and digital twin can enhance this kind of projects, let's have a quick talk and definition of a digital twin. So what is a digital twin? It's a virtual representation of a physical system and its associated environments and processes that is updated through the exchange of information between the physical and virtual systems. So if you want to talk about digital twin, we're gonna talk about two systems. We have the physical system and the virtual representation of which can say a virtual replica of physical system, and we have the data that is exchanged between the two systems. So if you want to apply this on an urban project or an urban space, we're going to talk about the physical urban space, which is reality, and we will have a virtual representation of this urban space with all its components, and also we'll have some data exchanged between the two systems. So we can have a virtual representation updated each time. If you have any change, we will have this change updated in the virtual representation. So now, how can the combination of this digital twin and AI enhance the urban regeneration projects? Well, actually, there is a lot of points that we can talk about in this, but I'm going to focus on three main points, which are, first of all, identifying regeneration zones. Well, the first phase of an urban regeneration project is to select or identify the areas that need urban regeneration. And we used like to use GIS to select this kind of areas by doing intersection of different layers. But now that we have the AI, we need to and we have to take advantage of AI to identify these zones, because AI has the capability of aggregating many source of data, including local survey data, satellite imagery, census data, economic reports, and etc. that we can all combine together and analyze it using AI algorithms to identify these areas and to help policymakers with a holistic urban view of these spaces, so they can select the real spaces that really need urban regeneration projects. Then we can talk about the second point, which is enhanced planning. Well, AI and digital twin enhanced planning urban regeneration scenarios. How is that? Is that, first of all, digital twin, as we said, can provide a virtual representation, which is updated of the physical urban space. So it has the capability of visualization and simulation. So urban planners can visualize the urban space with all its components, and also can visualize the scenarios and do simulations of regeneration planning before making these scenarios implemented in reality. And also AI has the capability of trends and predictive analysis. AI has the capability of data-driven analysis. So, and we need in this kind of project to analyze different kind of data to predict the impact of this regeneration scenarios before implementing this scenario. And AI has this capability to predict the impact of this project on different aspects, including social, economic, environmental, and etc., before implementing them, and also to analyze the trends and the future trends that urban planners have to take into consideration, including the population growth, the traffic, etc. And these trends need to be considered in the planning phase before implementing the urban regeneration scenario. And the third point that I find very important in urban regeneration projects is the community engagement. Because when we talk about this kind of projects, we talk about many stakeholders that are involved, and we talk about an impact of the impact of a new project on the population that lives in this urban space. So all the stakeholders, including citizens, should be involved in the project. And digital twin and AI provide amazing tools and platforms to engage these stakeholders. As we say, digital twins provide a digital platform of the project that can be visualized by citizens and all stakeholders. And also AI has the capability of analyzing all the data collected. Because when we talk about the community engagements, we talk about these stakeholders and citizens should have the possibility to express their needs and their requirements, and also to provide feedbacks on the projects going on their urban spaces. And AI has this possibility of analyzing all this data, including needs, requirements of different stakeholders, and also the feedbacks to analyze them, and to give real points and main points to city planners and policymakers to take into consideration before making the urban projects and the urban regeneration projects official. And here I would like to present just a screen of my current projects in which I'm developing with my research team a digital twin for a real case study project. It's an urban regeneration project in Morocco. In this project, we are developing a digital twin for all the stakeholders, to include them in the project and to help monitor the process of urban regeneration from the beginning until the implementation. And here, as you can see, there's a bottom that show your opinion matters. Will this bottom lead to a survey to collect the needs and requirements of different stakeholders, and also the feedback of citizens on the project. And in this point, AI will play a significant role in analyzing this data and to provide only main points and main needs and requirements, and also feedbacks of different stakeholders to policy makers that they have to take this into consideration before implementing the project and making it official. So I wanted to be so quick and clear. So with this screen, I finish my presentation, and I list if you have some question in the discussion, and thank you for your attention.
Yes, well, thank you so much, Oumayma. I
Thank
do
you.
appreciate your work as a young researcher. This is amazing. And I will just open the discussion, and maybe we can go back to the first presentation. I know that in my mind, I prepared questions in the same order of presentation. So I would like to start with Karla. And for all of you ladies, please feel free to interrupt and interact at any point. My question to Karla, and maybe because based on her presentation, I was interested in learning more. And Karla, if you can elaborate more on this concept of how AI is going to influence learning and education. And and how to maintain this process of thinking and critical thinking and imagination while interacting with AI, and your amazing analogy with instruments versus tools. And if you can elaborate on how do you see this moving beyond input-output model towards more systematic interaction with AI, with your research and education?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I've always, so I'm a mother, so I have a 10-year-old kid, and I've seen how much influence all the devices that we are currently having available for them to play with. And this question is very close to my research and also to my life in general, because I think now the younger generations have this short span between input and output that is not giving them enough time to have this critical thinking in order to address a question that they have. And with the statement that I said that we now have now images and text are cheap because they are mass produced, and they can be produced with even no prompt, right? Because we are already seeing that this technology has learned or knows because it has seen and read. So my answer to your question will be that probably now in education we have to challenge younger generations to question and to reason. In the sense of reason is to try to be as concise as possible into describing what exactly how will they come up with the logic behind what they need in order to answer a question. I see right now with my PhD students, one of the main things that we do is try to come up with the logic even before implementing the methodology, because I think right now we need to be fast into answering a question, but then we also have to be reasoning on how to create an answer for that particular problem that we have.
Yeah, and that's amazing, because I do believe that we want AI to do certain things while we also maintain this exploration and creative process, engaging with AI as a collaborator. And I agree with many arguments of your presentations today, but particularly with your work, Karla, I totally agree with the fact that we want this collaboration model to be as successful as possible. And I think the question is always, when do we let AI take over and we kind of back up? And when do we start to actually have more control or engage in a different way in the process? So I guess these questions of agency and human AI collaboration are always going to be important, and they also evolve over time. So 3-4 years ago, in my research, it was a very different mode of interaction. And now I think I had to rethink this interaction, because with other models, with the way that these text to image and diffusion and other models are being rapidly evolving, and their capabilities are increasing, I think we are also evolving this interaction in a very different way. I can follow up with other questions with Karla, but I'm also interested in maybe looking at what Ila is doing and how Ila's work actually has this kind of common aspect with Karla. And in Ila's work, I was really fascinated by this, her presentation was looking at this interaction with AI. And for example, how for us as humans to be resilient in this age of AI and this paradigm shift, and where does our human value lie, and actually the machine, and how does it gain more agency over time, and what's this future of AI and our own agency, and how do we retain values? And I think these are all big questions, but it was exciting to look at your work, Ila, in this sense of collaboration and interaction, and if you elaborate on your approach to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would like to take a brief moment to just congratulate all of us for our work and the great presentations. They're all diverse, and I love the fact that they're different because we can learn from differences, which is also true of what can be done with AI. So the agency and the learning curve, I do express over and over that can happen when you try working with diverse tools. So For me, the key to it all lies in the interdisciplinary factor that I was mentioning also in my presentation. So it is true that you grow the most, or at least you broaden your spectrum of understanding and potential to capabilities the more you're exposed to different factors. So for me, that key lies in de-narrowing both the machine and the human. So as I mentioned in my work, regardless of what I do, because I do a lot of things I've mentioned from the architectural standpoint and using diffusion models, and then all the way down to more analytical work with large language models, and therefore even retrieving from documents that are like textual and then informing engineering work, for example, and then computational engineering. I really didn't want to just show what we're doing at that level, but a lot has to do also with material science and discovering new possibilities of material characterization in connection with digital fabrication. Now, that's a secondary parenthesis. But in relation to agency and co-collaboration, I do believe de-narrowing both the human and the machine is what we should be doing. So exposure to different disciplines, working in different disciplines, and try to achieve this convergence of understanding between both spectrums is what I would like to see more happening in any kind of practice, in any kind of university. So multi-faculties, curriculum. I know it's already happening, but how can we take that to the next level? And the same way, horizontal collaboration between practices. I mean, which links me to kind of like ownership and ownership, authorship, and if you want, egocentric spectrum of what human creativity is. So if you take the average practice, I'm co-director of Ross Lovegrove Studio. Ross Lovegrove is a pioneer of organic design. His identity is very strong. He's one of the fathers of biomorphic design, parametric design, together with Patrick Schumacher and Zayed Architects. So his identity that he's been crafting for over 30 years is very strong. Okay, so he has this kind of like large data set of content created, both visual, three-dimensional, even philosophical, textual base, but and all of those large practices that have been ongoing for a long time have this very strong identity, and it's very hard for them to let go, right, and open up the horizon, not just to new possibilities in terms of what work they can do, but also how can their aesthetic or like principles can evolve, right? They tend to be very protective, which is understandable, but we're facing a future where we need to kind of be able to let go a little bit more of that authorship barrier or like mental constraint and mental bias, and be able to exploration. And therefore exploration for me brings collaboration. So you may see an architectural practice collaborating with a biologist collaborating with a culinary chef. I don't know, I'm just speculating, or athletes collaborating with. And therefore the machine being part of it all and making sense of it all, or helping making an analysis of all of this. So yeah, to answer your questions, for me, the key lies in interdisciplinary, identifying the intent and where the agentic role should lie. But we can only do that at a perception and comprehension level by experimenting and trying new things. So adventuring and reaching out and just conceptualizing work, basically.
Mhm. Yeah, and I totally agree with your argument for this co-evolving as like the analogy of a parent and a child, and how we are also evolving when we're interacting with AI models, and we're becoming also different. And I do like in the end of your presentation, you showed also future generations and how their interaction with AI will develop their skills at a very younger age compared to the way we were actually learning, right? So this education and learning is also impacting our brain development and our development in general. So these are amazing speculations, and I think they're logical assumptions on what will happen in the near future with this heavy interaction with AI models like ChatGPT with the PhD level. So yes, I mean, those are amazing opportunities. But I also want, and with this pedagogical and educational framework, I want to also shift gears and go back to someone like in practice, like Lorena, and look at how Lorena's work is really interesting in terms of the future of design value and the value proposition to our practice and businesses, like reconsidering how AI will expand our services, our roles, and reconsidering our team collaboration, and what do business values mean right now, and what and in what sense we have this more worth compared to AI, and how this leveraging of AI would help us to reposition ourselves within this ecosystem of AI. Lorena, if you can expand on that, and if I summarize some of your concepts, please correct me. But I do think that your agenda is really, really interesting. Yeah.
No, really appreciate that. It's a fascinating thing to be talking about in the professional world, where you're seeing the boots on the ground, what is really happening live. I mean, we've had situations similar to things that Adeline had shared, where a client comes in and says, this is what I want. We've had people have that as a baseline. And when you have these moments of, okay, that's one level of input, but there's also people who are clients on different levels of understanding of what the architecture industry does or what they can do. And some of them are actually equipped with their own kind of development tools and so on, and trying to get this feedback loop. So I think there is a moment that we need to really invest in the sort of marketing and the rebranding and positioning ourselves as what is the voice of how can we as architects communicate what it is that we do, and try to evolve with that. I think that's a very critical kind of first step, because otherwise there's a certain global perception of, okay, there's this death of the architect. But that being said, it is so true that as we progress and as we become more efficient and we're getting these tools, the fact of the matter is it will take less people to do that work. And when people in my company and others ask me about it, they go, well, what are we going to do? Or are we downsizing, whatever? And I go, no, it's great. We're just going to get more work. We're going to get more clients and more business. And that's the sort of optimistic view. But when you think about it as like, there are so many things that we can do. And our buildings also over time have had an increasing level of demand and complexity. I mean, no longer are the days where we're just building walls, we're building smart systems into our homes. Every single thing is movable, transformable. And now our clients themselves are grappling with the fact that they don't know where their own businesses are going in the future. So then we're having to design for another level of complexity and another level of flexibility, with a sort of temporal element of saying, okay, you're designing a building for the next 25, 50 years, but your industry is going to change. So for example, I was just at a healthcare conference, and I was co-presenting and collaborating with a healthcare practice area leader. And it was just a huge debate about, well, how are we going to be designing hospitals of the future, where there's more telehealth, where there's more AI-enabled machinery, the equipment's becoming smaller. You already have and may have increasing amounts of robots delivering things to your spaces. So how can we be designing for that flexibility? And so I think there's a moment where if architects stand up and say, look, we don't have the answers, we don't have a crystal ball for the future, but we can anticipate what the next logical step is, and we're the best people to get you there as strategists, as collaborators, and as designers. That's a way that we can really empower ourselves to lead the way into the future, not to be minimized, but to actually be the best foot forward to help our clients in their own journeys as well. So I see a lot of hope, but it comes from the place of caution, of understanding of, if we don't do this, it could go a direction that we don't necessarily want it to go.
I totally agree. And I share an optimistic view about our roles also. I do think that when I teach studios and these AI-driven workflows, versus I teach also environmental technology courses, where I teach our students how to interact with prediction models and environmental models for simulation. And I think we are required to have more skills. We have to broaden our spectrum of what we have as like mindset and skill to engage with this. So I think the complexity of the design process is increasing with the expectations or of the future architecture and buildings and what they should have in terms of systems, right? So I totally agree with you, Lorena. There's the design activity has become much more complex than 20 years ago or 30 years ago, which means we need AI, and our role is still valid and important just because there is a much more complex design process for demands and expectations for future architecture when it comes to resiliency and climate resiliency, and this design for systems rather than it's just a building or a structure, right? So I do see
if I
that.
can, oh, sorry.
Yes.
No, I wanted
Go
to
ahead,
add
Ella.
something really quickly because it's a very interesting point what both of you are saying. And for me, it goes back to what I was trying to say with interdisciplinary. When you have a large company that you have so many teams and some become redundant and outdated, you don't just let the people go. Maybe you just change the shift or their focus. You retrain them. I mean, Yuval Noah Harari, who talks about the 21st century with such a good level of depth and understanding of what humanity may look like. It talks about the many careers within one lifetime. So what if we retrain people to be different people? So maybe I don't know, Gensler develops new hospitals. Well, maybe some of their trainees become nurses. So they understand how and what a nurse needs. Or I'm just speculating, but it's this capability of being adventurous at a corporate level, at an individual level, and just embrace new things, new subjects. We're going to have to relearn and train ourselves so many times within our own lifetime that it's just better to use the same talents because their skill set and learned background is still relevant. So you just add upon it instead of just saying, oh, no, we don't need those 10 architects anymore. We don't need these 15 BMI specialists. Well, I'm going to use their skill set and just retrain them and focus on to something else. And they're going to still be valuable assets to the company.
And to add to that, actually, what you said in your presentation about the kind of agility of the mind being so important and being that kind of this key feature, it's so true. And even if you don't think beyond the architectural, which I think we certainly should, but even within our own offices, especially in big firms, people tend to be more specialized. They tend to be more siloed of, I'm this practice area leader, I'm doing this project, I'm this manager, I do this kind of design. And the people that are becoming, I do see it, much more busy, much more valuable, much more adaptable in all of these different projects are the people who are eternally flexible. And are they an architect? Are they a manager, a designer, a technician, someone who's doing CA? Like they're doing everything. And you do need AI almost to help you to be able to do all of those things. But it's that co-evolution. So I love the way this conversation has also grown. So thank you for all your inputs.
Yes. And now I think it's perfectly a good time to have Adeline's input because Adeline has really showed this case of her finding new role as an architect, right? And I do like what you presented, Adeline, when it comes to the structure of design phases and from early design conceptualization where there's a need for AI tools like Midjourney and other tools for speculation and exploration, and then technical aspects where we still have maybe like an area or a gap where we can use AI. Now, in my understanding, I would like AI to do things that are very technical and tedious, like the technical drawings. And I want to be more involved in the exploration part, in the early concept. But I think it's the other way around. So I do like your argument, and maybe you can elaborate on that.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for the question. Yeah, this journey so far has been bushwhacking. I don't know another word to better describe it. So it's very interesting to kind of trial and error and see how this is all working out. Basically, understanding that the technology is there and trying to find the market fit for that had been very interesting. And you're right, like we're designers, of course we want to do the fun stuff. And therefore, I feel like, yeah, the tools are already there for us to use to design. And that's no doubt. I don't think there's hardly any debate about that among us. I think actually it would be, at least I'm working towards seeing how AI can be used on the less sexy stuff. And what that is actually is the real client pain points. And I was surprised because I moved from being a consultant, architecture consultant, to then, which was then previously my firm, to now working inside a contractor and understanding their pain points. And then also the clients that I'm involved with are real estate developers, and then government entities. Did not expect their pain points to be so different to the ones that I had when I was an architect. Contract management, that's not sexy, man, but that's what they want AI to deal with, right? Like facility management, comparing tenders, all that sort of stuff. And then, so I realized that actually, yeah, AI can help with that part of the project management as well as the project itself. And the project management is just as important as the design process. And a lot of times, the project management has more money involved in that as well. And may I just share a very interesting finding that I had recently? I was in Japan. I was very lucky to be in a conference where there are some very smart people like yourselves there, but they're not from the architecture field. They're from like some medical, so actually a lot of them working on the medical stuff, a lot of them working on finance as well. So I was trying to stifle my imposter syndrome and just like trying to like chat with them and stuff. So they found out what I'm doing, and they asked me, look, the machine learning, all that technology is there. Why don't you guys just, your field, your industry, just quickly work out something that can read plans, and maybe draw plans or say or analyze plans. And I said, from my understanding, this is going to require a lot of data, and I think maybe something like Autodesk is working on it. But think about who has the most data, who has the most like storage of plans. For sure, like a large company like Gensler, perhaps. But in an area, who has the most storage of plans? Perhaps it's the government, perhaps it's the local authorities, and they have the storage. But do they have the incentive to train something like that? First of all, do they know what it can do? Secondly, do they have the incentive of that, knowing that their headcounts would change, whether or not that's good or bad? So yeah, so that's just some realization. I don't know if I deviated from your question or not, but I think my hands are quite dirty in finding out how to fit the market with the existing solutions that very talented people have made.
Yes, I mean, do you also share with us, like we were discussing with Lorena and Ella, the same sentiment that we are not in a crisis as architects? We still have a role. It is just that the role is changing and it's more dynamic, more interdisciplinary. I think from your experience, I sense that too. So you see the potential of AI, but with the change and the rethinking and the maybe unlearning and relearning certain aspects in our discipline. And if that is true from your experience, is that how I felt your presentation was like projecting that, no?
Yes, yes. I think in the long term, we will find our way and we will shift. However, I think in the short term, we are struggling. I think, at least from my point of view, from what I see, like I said, the economy, and also I think even before AI, I think there are lots of brewing issues in the industry in terms of our fee structure, in terms of our business model as architectural consultants. So all of those kind of are exposed when AI emerges. But that being said, I think the only future we have will be with AI. And I definitely, like you said, I have a positive way to think about it. And as long as people are interested in and curious in upskilling themselves, I think the way is always going to be bright.
Can I share some thoughts about
Yes.
Because we're talking about AI as this holistic approach to different computation techniques. And I always addressed in class, and when I speak about what's the future of our profession or everybody's profession, I said that we need to invest into coding literacy, or at least into the way of understanding this new language, which is, kind of their native language for a small group of people who are coming from a particular background. In our case, it's engineers, right? And I think thinking of coding literacy is not that you need to be able to code from very scratch, one of the most wonderful and very computationally successful algorithm, but it's more about knowing how to read code and how to play or how to connect different parts of code into meaningful sequential order. I think this is something that we need to push either from academia or from the industry in order to train for coding literacy as a way to understand this new language, which is the language that all of these different computationally expensive algorithms are based on, and understanding, like I will always talk about the idea of the instrument and the tool, right? But what happened with a good musician or a violin that's playing the violin, it understands the instrument. It knows that the shape of the instrument will have the sound bound in a different way, that the sound has a different way of going if you touch it in this way, or if the chord goes in another way. If we're just using any AI product, just trusting that it should be working, that we're missing a great opportunity to really invest into what really makes sense. Why do we use this type of architecture rather than this other one? What is the way that we do the whole machine learning process in, teaching, learning, inference? How do we act into the data, which is the teaching? How do we act into the learning on the architecture of the algorithm, and how do we act on the validation? I think this literacy should be holistic from the core, which is what is computation, what is coding, and how can we read and write code? We don't need to be Shakespeare, right, in order to speak English, but we need to know what English is.
I totally agree. Now, in my observation of students engaging in AI research, especially when I teach thesis level, the ones who are more computationally skilled, the ones who they will engage with training AI models and inputting data that are more curated and more confident and have more clear intention in many cases, versus the students with less computational skills. They seem to be just believing that AI is going to give them something, while the input may not be as great. So they get disappointed because, yes, I mean, especially with older models, when it was mostly like the GAN models I was using, it relied heavily on the data sets. Now, the diffusion models with their capabilities, with even one text prompt, and now the video generation revolution, and moving to 3D, which I think is the next big development. We are looking at AI that can generate 3D models. So I guess we still need the literacy, and I agree with you, Karla, completely, that the agency and the control and this more successful interaction comes from a better and deeper understanding of that particular tool that we can call a black box. But I think it becomes less of a black box if we really understand the internal logic of those models at the basic conceptual level, at least. Yeah, and
yeah, I totally agree.
Yes.
No,
and
if I wanted to add quickly, sorry, on what Karla
Yes.
said, 100%. I had a few conversations on this topic. Well, first of all, if you look at from the fashion world, Alexander McQueen always used to say, you need to know the rules to break the rules. So having a base knowledge of those is absolutely imperative. But I go back to also what Lorena was trying to say, and maybe we all agree on it. Between among the demographic, I would say that the architect mind is the best mind suited to do this particular job across disciplines. The way architectural minds are trained, looking at a building, can be applied to many different scopes beyond architecture in terms of coding, understanding how to lay out the framework of that particular coding, the framework of the machine, and they also identifying the best data to train the machine. So I was speaking with a neuroscientist that works on deep learning at a linguistic level. So they do text to speech, for example, or speech to text and vice versa. And she would say the biggest struggle is identifying the relevant data that can really optimize the machine for the best task and the best performing task. So what Karla was saying is absolutely true. Not only is important to understanding how to lay out the framework, but I think it's also important to selecting and curating the data that is most relevant to the outcome. And sometimes it can be totally unexpected. So Shermeen, you were showing the vernacular architecture in all of your studies there, but it might be the unexpected piece of the puzzle that gets you where you want to go as at the origin of the intention, right? And having that curatorial, critical, but also architectural mindset can bring you there. So I agree on everything that was said.
Yes, and I think to also engage Oumayma and Smaro, and they have different focuses in the research, but I do like this combination when, for example, in Smaro's work, she's trying, and if I'm reading it more successfully, is she's trying to look at how can we skew the bias of these AI models to carry our own sensibilities as designers, and maybe to look at historical architecture in interaction with AI. So Smaro, if you can speak of that so far, the experience of your projects and also current research.
So to start, like Mark Yartzonberg of MIT in his book Post-Ontological Digital Stockholm Syndrome in the Post-Ontological Age speaks a little bit about heritage preservation and all these different things being some sort of like politic and a mentality towards society in general. It's a big, broad question. What do we preserve? What do we discard? Also, it's been a discussion about the modern movement, very specifically, what do we do? What is to be demolished? What is to be preserved? For example, past 3 years, Lacaton Evasal of Paris won with the adaptive reuse of a modernist kind of like living complex. And with all that being said, I feel like we're entering an era where some things are very much digital, like we have a whole other avatar or personality or presence in the digital sphere than we have in our physical world. And that translates to architecture through metaverse, omniverse, and all these different platforms, or just even AR, Apple Vision. And why am I saying all that is because sometimes what we have left, or like the residues, the scraps, or whatever you want to call it, of a different bygone era, have to be considered within the context and see what makes sense ecologically first, like environmentally first, to be kept. And part of that is the formal vocabulary of our own endeavors. For example, like even in Miami, we have a very let's say, lively or vibrant heritage of Art Deco. How do you design and construct in a way that's sensible to what was there before, that's aging and may or may not be able to be preserved for like ages and ages to come? But how do we keep those traces in the sense that also known philosophers and phenomenologists use trace as a sign of something that's past? And to me, this is a very interesting question, a very multimodal question, a very much like question relating to our own philosophy as humans. And when I say ours, it encloses a lot of different groups of people, like minorities. Myself, I'm not an American. Most of us here are not Americans. Then it has to do with being a female designer, more specifically. How do we design gender spaces and all these different aspects that can be encoded or embedded into multimodal deep neural networks? I feel like, again, our job can never be undertaken in its totality by a neural network, because for me, as a young architect, I would say our job is to think, to provision for the future, and to kind of like make predictions based on our instincts, on our intuition, or our research. That's why I'm saying our profession is very research based, or like research heavy, and you have to be curious to kind of like smell the air and understand the context in a way that's beyond what's there, beyond the material realm. So I don't know if I covered kind of your question. Like, again,
Yes,
it's a bit of an ongoing discussion in my head too, because I'm moving a little bit away from, let's say, heritage and more into like feminist theory through AI and all these different things and how we can spatialize those experiences. Nonetheless, I feel everybody's always a work in progress, so excuse me if this is not very clear at the moment.
Well,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think the moment that we know exactly what architecture is, then I'm not interested anymore. I think it's a concept that is evolving and it is so generic that it does welcome a lot of exploration. I think Vitruvius in his 10 Flukes of Architecture said that architecture is the art of joining things masterfully, things being bricks, treaties, or drawings. And so I think that very simple concept of what architecture is already from thousands of years ago brings to a point where it is professional, multi-model, multidisciplinary approach into a synthesis of a thing, right? We are able to synthesize in a masterful way, whether a book, a space, or a building, I think.
I cannot agree anymore. I also want to echo what Smaro and Karla are talking about in a sense that the future of this interaction with AI, the way I see it is that I've already taught the courses where the students engage with at least 10 to 20 AI models connected, but that was also not as like complete as a project that they developed. In fact, if we would need another semester, they would have to engage with another 20 or maybe 30 AI models. So I think the way that I see, because of the complexity of the design process and because of the fact that there's multiple tasks that AI can be helpful at, whether it's the interpolation or extrapolation of the data we feed them, and also the fact that design phases are different. I think I see more of an ecosystem of AI and an ecology of AI models. And I think it's going to be a much more complex as a process. And design problems are changing and evolving. So we have climate crisis. We also have historic buildings that we want to design within a historical context. And that's the reality. In the future, we'll have less of empty lands to build. We'll have more of existing structures. So in Smaro's project, I think that becomes very valid, like how AI can be used to interpolate what's happening in that context. And maybe if it can offer extrapolation that we haven't imagined, like a rethinking of adaptation or filling in within a historical or historically rich context. But I do want to also move on with Oumayma's interesting approach. And one of the aspects of applying AI at urban scale, and this may be argument or this concept of AI at different scales as well as different design phases. So in Oumayma's work, I do observe that AI is really helpful in this digital twin component and also the sustainable urban planning. And it can offer all of these benefits, combining certain technology or also interacting with clients and allowing this data-driven design to be more amplified and augmented. But also, Oumayma, maybe if it is a critical question for you, after you engaged in that research, where do you see then the potentials, the future potentials of AI within this framework of digital twins and urban scale? What can AI do more than what you are using it for right now?
Well, what I can see about AI and digital twins is like nowadays we all talk about sustainable urban planning and smart cities and so on, and especially sustainable urban planning. And when we talk about sustainable urban planning, we talk about acting on urban spaces to improve three main aspects, which are social, economic, and environmental aspects. And before like making new urban scenarios on urban space, we need to assess the impact of these new scenarios on these three aspects. And AI can play a great role in this because it has the capability of analyzing large data sets, and it has the capability of predictive analysis. So before making and put in new planning scenarios, we need to assess the impact of these scenarios on these three aspects: social, economic, and environmental, which is very, very important. And also, as I talked about urban regeneration as a specific project, I'm gonna give just an example. In this kind of project, we will find ourselves, our policymakers will find themselves between different strategies. Just for example, when we talk about um, regeneration of the buildings, they will ask the question: we gonna make a renovation, or we gonna make a demolition or reconstruction. So this kind of strategies need some deep data analysis and to assess the impact of the social impacts and the economic impacts of these strategies before choosing one of those strategies. And AI can play a great role in this data analysis. And also, when we talk about sustainable urban planning, for me, we could not talk about this without engaging citizens, because they are the main actors in this urban planning projects, and they need to be engaged from the beginning of the project. And in this point, I'm not talking just from an academic or research background, but I'm talking from my background of professional experience in the National Agency of Urban Regeneration, because I worked on real-world projects of urban regeneration, and I know how the engagement of citizens is so important. They can, if the population is not engaged from the beginning, and if they disagree about some urban policies, the whole projects can be blocked. So their integration from the beginning is so important. And for this point, we can use, as I presented, the digital twin and AI platforms to keep the population informed and engaged through the whole process from the beginning and the implementation of the projects. And they can also give feedback on the projects, and these feedbacks can be analyzed using AI algorithms. So that's in general the benefits that I see of AI in this kind of projects.
Yeah, that's amazing, Oumayma. And if I would just allow all of us to maybe speculate or add points to what I felt throughout these years of this interaction with research and teaching on AI in this kind of sense of frameworks, AI-driven frameworks, I noticed myself also evolving in terms of moving from excitement about everything AI is offering to being more critical of what I can do to improve certain things that I'm not happy with. For example, with points that you all mentioned, for example, certain sensibilities or biases that you want AI to you want to encode AI, or you want to keep training, or you want to input your own concepts that AI can do better at giving you outputs that are more sensible to certain climate, context, concepts, right? So I do think maybe it would be great for us to, for each of you to show us how their process evolved, and how do you see this happening in the coming maybe 5-10 years. I think it's hard to speculate what's going to happen with the AI revolution more than that. But if you tell me about how you see this interaction with AI models and ecosystems evolving from your experience and from projection on the near future, how is it this interaction evolving? In what direction are you also thinking of aspects of AI bias and issues that you want to solve in your own frameworks that you're developing? If we can start with Karla again, it's up to you.
Yeah, I can start. One main shift that I see on my work, I've been working on AI research for the last 8 years. And at the very beginning, one of the push that I had was on thinking of any implementation that uses AI to become an kind of an assistant. But my main shift happened when I stopped thinking of an assistant and break from the relationship of master-slave, because I think through history, we've seen that that's not working, right? So that really does not work if you're simply trying to control something in order to just do what you want them to do. So I think that was one of the main shifts that I see, is like, how can I create something that is playing as an active agent within a contribution that we're doing. So one thing that I also find that really interesting right now is that, and I think this relates to the whole conversation that we have now, that we see that young generations just want to use it, right? They just embrace it. They don't even have to question it because it becomes a ground infrastructure where they just build upon what they know. So how can we take care, or how can we make sure that this infrastructure is indeed something that can help us or make us augment our capabilities? And this relates to, for example, I teach this, I developed an AI certificate for graduate students at UF in architecture. And one of the first classes that we teach is something called Fundamentals of Coding and Computation, just to make them aware that what we're seeing today is not a 2 years investment into AI. This is a 100-year tradition into thinking of computational thinking and coding, right? And then thinking how did we came to be right now. The course about fundamentals of ethics, artificial intelligence in architecture, right? I think we always were afraid of the biases that are embedded into the libraries, but in our profession, actually biases are not negative. Like, how can we create positive biases in the sense that we want to either mitigate something that we know it's not present? And I think this is a lot into thinking about gender equity, because there is a lot of data sets that are not balanced based on gender. So how can we make a positive bias so we're able to learn from something more than what is already there? So I think that's some of the things that I'm currently thinking. And if I want to connect to Oumayma presentation, because most of my work right now is in creating a thought of digital twins, I refer to them as intelligent environments. Like in our profession, we think spatially. And how do we transition skills from doing a motor of a car to a building to a neighborhood to a city, and then how do we design them? And I think the way to design them is to create an immersive environment that it is becoming this intelligent entity that is able to react to every input that you have. And I think this is very interesting when you refer to the user that is going to be acting on that environment. And one of the questions that I always have is, what's the main difference between a BIM model to a digital twin? What is the main difference of a GIS environment, 3D environment, to a digital twin? And the question the answer that I always stump upon is, the difference is that it is a bidirectional data connection from the physical to the digital, and it also allows you to have reactions from the environment to the input that you have. So how do you use AI as search engines, as generative algorithms, as predictors, classifiers? How do you leverage historical data? So I think this is a very interesting discussion. I think I'm going many places, but I just want to, I'm trying to touch on everybody's presentation. I'm really happy and glad to be here. These almost 3 hours have been enriching. And I've been sending friend invitations to all of you because I want you to be in my network for the years to come.
I totally agree, and I share the same feeling. I think we need to write a book, like I think Lorena suggested yesterday. One thing I really like how you mentioned, Karla, is that this interaction, we're not supposed to look at AI as like assistant. I think it's a different role. I think a collaborator. Maybe it's okay to allow it to have more agency, but maybe in a healthy way, rather than the sphere of AI being independent and autonomous and having its own identity and agency. I think that's a concern, but I also think that if we constrain it too much, if it becomes just doing one task we allow it to do, and if we control it too much, then it's not going to actually extrapolate beyond what we feed it, right, in terms of input. So I think there's this choreography or interaction that is designed to allow it to do more than what we predict. Otherwise, why we are engaging that? And if we know the answer, I think then and if we wanted to give us a certain answer, then it's not going to be as helpful as we allow it to be a little bit more independent. But I think that is also something maybe from my reading of Ila's work is she's trying and she's projecting on the future. So I do like the last part of Ila's presentation, and maybe she can elaborate on that, is that it's healthy that future generations will look at AI as like this kind of educational learning experience, and they will build on that. And so they'll start at a very different brain development level. And what does that mean for us as like in the near future?
I
Ella,
think,
yes.
Thank you, Shermeen. Thank you, Karla. I think there's a lot that has been said in this conversation that eventually is going to collide and become one. Like if I take what you just asked me or what Karla has elaborated on, and even the mentorship that came from Lorena's presentation, I think this collaborative dynamic and interplay with AI will have a little bit of everything we mentioned. It will be a mentorship relationship, potentially. It will be a guiding, it will be a teaching and learning. It will be so much. And I would love for AI to have more agency, to have more intent and have more independency, because I think the true marriage of the two can only happen in that situation. So totally detached from the master and slave, totally detached from even the parent and the child. It has to be mutual growth. And if the student outgrows the master, so let it be, because then it becomes mentorship the other way, right? At the moment, we are mentoring the machine. We're training the machine, we're coding the machine. What happens when that comes the other side? I mean, it's maybe something that comes more from Asian culture rather than Western culture. So if you look at the yin and yang and Smaro, we both mentioned the cyclical, the snake that bites its tail is this Ouroboros symbolic codependency but growth. So I think everything that we mentioned will eventually inevitably develop itself in all of these different forms, and it will be an ecosystem, as you, Sherman, you mentioned. Everything it's holistically integrated. It just we need to allow it to take form, right? And so, yes, having awareness, yes, let's read through the lines or draw some lines, but not too much bias, not too much limitation, a little bit of freedom for itself to become. That's all I feel like saying.
I agree. And now we want Lorena's feedback. Does your approach to AI, do you want it to have more autonomy? Do you want it to do something unpredicted?
And I haven't thought about it as letting it have total free reign in that sense. I think that's a deeper kind of question, but I do think that we're all agreeing in this fact that it is influencing us and influencing the way that we think and the way that we perceive things. And it becomes something that, there really is no going back for me now that I've gone through and I have all of these tools at my disposal, from creative to technical. It's always a part of what I do. And just to take a broader step, because you asked the question about things that are kind of on your mind and how things are leading into the future. I know we're very concerned about some of these dangers that are coming afoot, and I'm going to make a general assumption that hopefully we are going to be able to find a way to make certain things like deep fakes and so on illegal and codify it in some way. Let's just make that assumption. But what I kind of love about the fact that there are deep fakes out there and there are these things is that it is causing the general population and the public to actually question what information we're getting and what is at the source of it and what is feeding that information. I think from a socio-ecological, political, empathetic way, it's actually an amazing thing for humanity that we are now having a moment where we're questioning ourselves and where we're getting our information and our own biases. I think it's a very, very beautiful thing. So I'm actually kind of excited that it's crazy, creating a little bit of shock and awe. I think it's going to help us move into the future of being better people, ultimately. But I think one of the things that's just the root of all of this, if I think that, okay, let's say we can get over that hurdle of deep fakes and we can understand what is at the source of this, then we get to this next interesting moment of when we think about like, well, what is that point of genius? Like, what is the spark? What is the idea? And where did that come from? Because so often, I mean, if you think about the context of work in the industrial age, everything is about production, more is more is more is more. Well, now more is not more. There's so much more. It's actually like that cliche of less is more, but not just less, but the right less, the right thing, the final one thing. What is it, the essence of whatever the idea is? If you could simplify it to a word, to a sentence, to a point of innovation, if we can do that, then I think that we really have a way to deal with this future of the amazing vast amounts of data, and it comes down to that simplicity of humanity, I suppose. So I think, you know, the fact that we're grappling with all of these things are going to make us better in the long run.
I do like that, Lorena. That's amazing. Now, I do also want to have the same question to Adeline. How do you see your particular approach to AI evolving in the coming years? And if you share a similar positive or negative, it's up to you. How do you see AI taking different roles and your interaction in your particular practice and the way that you mentioned we have different roles right now?
Yeah, I think what you guys have said so far have been pretty powerful. I am wrapping my head around some of the concepts. I think it's because I've been very zoned into, like, during my own practice, I mean, I've been very zoned into very like detailed problems that the clients have. And I've always seen AI as a solution. It's always been like solution to someone's problem. But I really like today's conversation because I'm suddenly reminded of the broader scale of things, you know, thinking about the greater, almost like the human future. And I'm going to be as articulate as I can at 1 a.m. at my time. Actually, I think I do want to go back to the tools versus instruments analogy from Karla, which is very good. I think instruments can be used, like AI instruments can be used by architects in the design. Like some of the designs that Ila shown have been like very emotive and emotion like provoking, and I think that is very successful in that way. In the part of the practice that I'm looking into, project management, I think the clients, they actually want a lot of control. They don't want any, meaning they want a specific ROI so that they can tell their financial team what the budget would be. Like if they implement something that has AI in it, do they get some sort of ROI? And that's a very realistic problem that I am facing, a challenge. And I think going into a little bit more specific, I think it's like NLP and the data analytics and predictive models that is going to be solving that part. So I do think those are the tools. Tools meaning it's very specific. You use it to do a specific thing to achieve a specific thing, whereas the instruments are for the creators, and that's how I see it. And I definitely agree that having coding literacy is going to be a very important skill set just for anyone. So I am positive. I think we need to be. That's the thing. And I do want to say that I'm reading a really nice book right now. Maybe some of you guys have read it. It's by Kai-Fu Lee, 2041. It's such a good book. And he wrote it in 2021, sorry. And the book's name is 2041. I don't know if I said it right just now. And basically, when he wrote in 2021, he envisioned how 2041 is going to look like. In terms of how, like, he wrote 10 short stories. They are fiction, but he then added like a very professional commentary on like how he really thinks AI will be affecting our education, relationships, dating, journalism. So it's a great book, and it's on my mind right now. A great read if any of, and I think you guys, all of you here will like it, I dare say.
Thank you so much, Adeline. We will read it. I would get a copy, but we will also have Oumayma and Smaro's projection to how they envision AI, interaction with AI in their particular experience or in general also. Maybe Smaro, if I ask you to go first.
Oh, okay. So on the one hand, I feel like it's going to be a lot more normalized, and it already has been around the world, depending on the latitude and all these different things like the geolocation of the practice. I feel like we're still not in the same level of integration of AI systems into design or construction and all these different things. It really depends on how if a society, a certain societal system is more technophobic or more like there's some sort of skepticism. Nonetheless, our profession in general, it has been observed that based on the integration of different technologies from CAD to BIM all the way to AI systems right now is a shrinking field. We're employing less and less people. Less and less people are needed to draft documents, to actually go from ideation to construction. And this is going to, I think, not cease with deep neural networks, but maybe shift some of the people that were previously in architecture towards other professions, such as, let's say, coding, or if it's not coding, it's like prompt designer, all these different emerging kind of specialties that have to do with how we interpret, how we make our representations and how we might materialize our ideas. That was kind of, I feel like the question when first renderings and all this realm of like representation in photorealistic 3D came along, where a big chunk of our profession got into being, let's say, CAD monkeys or like just visualization artists. So I think something similar to that is going to emerge. But nonetheless, in general, there is a lingering question about which parts of architecture or architectural history, heritage, progression, development are digitized and are available online in a sumptuous, like in enough volume to influence certain certain networks, and whether there is something as architects that we can do to shift the bias based on the data sets that we provide. And this is a collective effort. There have been efforts towards that. For example, the architectural image database, the annotated architectural image database, something like that, that was developed and is available in the Harvard libraries. It's not very much used, but there are these types of questions where where our own aesthetics, our own sensibilities as architectural practicing architects have to kind of interplay with the current status quo, like technological status quo. From a personal perspective, I'm really interested in broadening my own ideas or the search space or the latent space through the addition, integration of different AI models, see what can be done with the existing models and how they can be repurposed for my own design agenda. But I think that's pretty much everybody. I just feel like it's going to be a lot more proliferated as a way of using those models in practice and in pedagogy too. Pedagogy, I feel like affects influences practice later on in a ripple effect kind of way, like 4 or 5 years down the line. So it's really important how we structure our students' thought for the future as well.
Yes, I agree. And I also want to ask Oumayma to build on that. Oumayma, beyond what you've already worked on, how do you see the future of this type of research that you're engaging in? And maybe what's your projection, and also what do you want AI to do for you that it's not doing right now? Or how do you see that collaboration maybe to be more successful, more meaningful for you?
Well, I will reply to your question, based on I did a systematic review of these emerging technologies on urban planning, and I can see that based on that, there is a positive trend in using these emerging technologies in urban planning, but we still have a lack, like regarding other technologies such as GIS, building information modeling, and other technologies. We still have a gap in the research. So I would love to have more research and more research studies on the use of this AI and digital twins, because it has really great capabilities in enhancing urban planning. And also, I would like to have collaboration between universities and urban agencies and the governments, so that research would work on real world projects, and so we can see the real impact of these digital technologies in real world urban projects. So that's what I want.
Amazing. And if I would just add one more thing, because we still need to close this amazing session. Now, I don't want to ever to end the session, but I guess there should be some time in a few minutes. But maybe something you have seen or not, there was an article a few months ago that says that I want AI to do my laundry and wash my dishes rather than doing writing and art. But right now, AI is doing the writing and art, and we are doing the laundry and dishes, right? So I guess in design, in architecture, I want to still engage in the design process in terms of the exploration part, the conceptualization. Well, AI can do the mechanical, electrical, whatever, plumbing systems, and do the technical aspects that are not as requiring my input in terms of innovation. But it seems that it's actually the other way around, especially with Adeline's presentation. We saw that that part is like the technical aspects of the design process. There's a still gap, while AI is already with all of the tools. It's more tailored towards the first part of design exploration. And for me, I think the way I see AI interaction within my workflow is that I want certain AI tools to understand my concepts and then to be trained on my concepts. So later on, I don't start from scratch. I want to build on those concepts that AI has already been trained on with my input. And then I move forward with maybe a higher level of interaction where it can use my passive strategies input, my vernaculars, like design principles, and then it can generate new designs that I haven't thought of necessarily. But then moving with another AI model that can predict and can analyze, then that part, I think I allow it to do it, especially if it is a good surrogate model or a predictive model that has been trained for accuracy. So I do think this engaging with a workflow, I want certain aspects to be more augmented, especially at the interaction of innovation and creative exploration. And I want AI to automate tasks that I'm not necessarily as interested in as a designer. And I think if we push that direction with our research, I think that is the more dynamic, meaningful interaction that can lead to this amazing maybe output when we and the machine are creating something innovative together. And I think that's how I see it as hopefully the trajectory of AI. I don't want it to do the other way around. I don't want it to do things that I'm interested in, and then I do the things that I don't like. Yeah, but I think it's a great observation that with all your research presentations today and your work, it's amazing how you all showed your own particular take, and your work has a specific questions and you're addressing certain problems and challenges at different scales across different levels in the design process. And I'm fascinated by how I learned from all of you today, and I have so many things that I need to think about, and I want to watch this session again, learn from your presentations. But I also do want to share that it's a critical moment we are in as designers and architects. I agree with the discussion that we are not in the best phase. Maybe in the near future we can have this development of this area of interaction with AI may be better. I think we are in a critical moment, but we share this positivity today. I don't think Professor Neil Leach shares the same. I think if Neil is here, he'd have a different perspective. But I do like the aspects you are critical about, and I think it's okay for us to still be critical and curious while engaging in this process. It doesn't mean we're very much happy with everything that is outputted by AI so far. The way that the AI models that we are not involved in their training, we don't know exactly what data sets. It's still a black box sometimes. But I do think that for us to engage in such a process with the interaction with the machine, I think having more critical perspective can be healthy, and allowing certain aspects to be considered from our own biases. And I do like this notion today, I heard from some of you, is that there's a positive bias that I think we should actually look for when interacting with AI. I can keep going, but I do think that we can close the session. I'm absolutely fascinated, and I'm so proud of all of you, amazing female researchers. And I do agree with Neil that hopefully this AI world of research is actually, there's more female voices in it, and there's more like ambition and talents like all of you doing amazing work. And I can tell that I'm so proud of you. I'm also optimistic that there's more female voices that will emerge in AI research with your education curriculums and agenda. And I'm happy that there is this trend of maybe female presence in the AI research. As we know, this is still a male-dominated area, and even computation itself is a still male-dominated area. But I think we're changing those boundaries. I think we're pushing an agenda, and hopefully that will be even more evident in the near future. So thank you again, all of you. Thank you so much. And let's keep in touch, and let's have maybe more collaboration in the near future. And thank you for staying with us until after midnight in some areas, like Adeline. And
It's worth
yeah,
it. It's worth
thank
it.
you. Thank you all. Thank you all. It was a great
Thank you
pleasure.
so much.
Thank
And I'm
you.
Thank you
happy
so
and proud of
much.
all of you. Thank you, Smaro, for organizing this. Thank you. Have a great day.
Have a great day.
Yes, Smaro, you ended the live stream.
Okay, I